Story 1.
After catching my wife cheating with a spy app, I uncovered her lies and planned my revenge. I can't believe this is happening to me. My wife and I, who is 48, have been married for 14 years, but now it feels like she's a stranger. A few years ago, she got a promotion and started making more money. Since then, she's been distant. When the quarantine hit, she underwent a sudden change. It was like a switch flipped, and she told me she couldn't handle being stuck at home. This lockdown made us confront the issues in our marriage, which we always had but ignored before. Initially, we were very compatible, but now it seems like we have nothing in common. I know we're not the only couple struggling with work, kids, and life, but it doesn't make it any easier. Before the pandemic, we argued about everything, and she always turned it into a big deal. She suggested marriage counseling, and I reluctantly agreed, hoping to go back to how things used to be. However, finding a counselor during the lockdown was impossible, so I proposed we try talking things out ourselves. I won't lie, it's been tough. Our problems caused me to shut down, and we started sleeping in separate rooms. Though we still have moments of closeness, it's not enough. She's a great mom to our kids, but what about us? I'm determined to fix this, no matter what it takes. I want to feel that spark we had when we first got married. Update: in June, I reached a point where I couldn't handle it anymore. I didn't understand why everything was changing so much, and it hurt to see my family falling apart. Even though my kids are young, they can tell something's wrong, and it's affecting their mood. I trusted my gut feeling that something worse than our already messed up marriage was happening. That's when I decided to play detective. I noticed my wife always has her phone, keeping it close and hidden. She's always on it, ignoring me and the TV, waiting for the next text. It's like she's hypnotized, focusing only on the phone. Sometimes she leaves the house saying she's bored, but I suspect she's meeting someone. Being stuck at home made me realize how clueless I've been. I know something's off, but I need to be sure. That's why I ordered a voice-activated recorder on Amazon and put it in her car while she was asleep. After anxiously waiting for 2 days, I finally got the recorder from her car. As I listened, my heart sank. My wife was the only one talking, but she was clearly talking to a guy. They discussed work, but also how much they missed each other and how bored she was with our marriage. I could hear the excitement in her voice about meeting him. My worst fears were true. My wife was having an affair. Listening further, I heard them plan to meet at a hotel parking lot near our house. When she got there, I heard the car door close as she got out. My mind was racing. Should I confront her now? Should I wait and gather more evidence? It was the toughest thing I've ever done, sitting there pretending everything was fine while my heart was shattered. The idea of my wife cheating was unbearable. I had to act normal, even though my mind was racing and my stomach was in knots. Some might wonder why I don't confront her right away, but I know her too well. She won't confess easily, and she's clever. She would deny everything, and it would turn into a huge fight. Without strong evidence, getting the closure I needed would be tough. That's why I took matters into my own hands. Besides the recorder, I also put a GPS tracker in her car. It's extreme, but I needed the truth, and if my suspicions were correct, I needed to be prepared for what was coming. Update: in mid-June, COVID restrictions were easing up where I live, and my wife and I had started going back to work. One evening, after we both got home from work, we had dinner and watched TV. While she was on her phone texting, she suddenly said she was going for a late-night ride to clear her head. At first, when she mentioned that, I felt a mix of anger and relief. I'd been waiting for this moment for the past 2 weeks because catching her red-handed had been on my mind constantly. I couldn't even concentrate at work because of it. I couldn't help but wonder how things went so wrong in our marriage. Was it because she was making more money now? I knew I shouldn't blame myself for her cheating, but I couldn't help feeling that way. As soon as I heard her car leave the driveway, I turned off the TV and put the kids to bed. Then I grabbed my phone and opened the tracking app. I saw her car was in a parking lot close to our house. I assumed they booked a hotel room there, so I planned on waiting in the hotel lobby to catch them when they came out. I couldn't believe how careless my wife was for choosing such a location for cheating, or was I so blind that she thought I wouldn't find out? Who goes for a ride in the middle of the night to clear their head anyway? She must think I'm a fool. Or maybe she took advantage of our rough patch and wanted some space. After about 20 minutes since she left, I got into my car and drove to the hotel. When I arrived, I saw only 5 cars in the parking lot, which was usually not busy, but it looked unusually quiet. I noticed that the lobby lights were off, so I realized the hotel was still shut down. I parked my car at a distance and noticed my wife's car in a secluded area of the lot, with an SUV parked next to it. My heart started beating fast when I thought they might be in either her car or his. I wasn't sure if they noticed me because of how they parked, giving them a view of any car entering the parking lot from the highway. The lot was dark and quiet, and they were in a secluded area. I turned off my car and stared in their direction to see if I could make out whether they were still in the car. Since the hotel was closed, they must have been in either his or her car. The longer I stared, the more I realized they weren't in the car, because both sides were empty. By now, almost 40 minutes had passed since she left the house, and I knew she would be heading back home soon, because she knew I would be worried. The thought of her leaving the house and kids for some questionable encounter in a motel parking lot with a stranger made me lose it. This was not the same woman I had been married to for 15 years. I couldn't just drive to where they parked because it was about 30 yards away. So I decided to get out of my car and walk toward their car in a way they wouldn't see me coming. The closer I got, the more I noticed a rhythmic movement in the SUV. All the emotions I had been holding back suddenly overwhelmed me, and I ran toward the car. When I got there, I tried to open the door, but it was locked. I couldn't believe what I saw. My wife, who I've been married to for 15 years, was getting close with a stranger in a rundown motel parking lot like some kind of cheap affair. The guy drove away as fast as he could, leaving me feeling like I failed in my mission to catch them in the act. I really wanted to catch them red-handed with their clothes off, but at least she can't deny what she did. Update: I stayed awake all night, anticipating her return. It wasn't until 5 a.m. that she finally entered. The moment I saw her, I sensed something amiss. She appeared completely drained, as if she had faced a battle. Her body language conveyed guilt and shame, and she couldn't meet my gaze. The first words she uttered were an attempt to explain, insisting it wasn't as it seemed. However, I was already aware she had been meeting this guy repeatedly. She confessed to knowing him for about 6 months but refused to disclose his identity or that they worked together. She explained they both faced marriage problems and loneliness, seeking support from each other. Their closeness occurred only once, and that was when I caught them. She became defensive, citing our rocky marriage and her stress. While she didn't want to separate, she felt the need for space to figure things out. She was upset that I had eavesdropped and followed her, even stating she wouldn't stop seeing this person as he provided support, especially considering the challenges between us. I was devastated. It felt like my world had crumbled. How could she do this after all our years together? The pain was almost unbearable, and I didn't know how to get through it. I acknowledged it was over between us and had resolved to tell her I wanted a divorce. I didn't expect her surprise, and she certainly didn't express guilt. She had already justified her actions, claiming our loveless marriage pushed her to seek happiness elsewhere. I knew she would probably move on with her affair partner, a reality I had accepted. It hurt, but I recognized it was for the best. I couldn't continue in a loveless marriage, and I couldn't force her to stay if her heart wasn't in it. Despite the urge to express anger for her actions, I still wanted to hear her out, knowing she might only speak lies. A small part of me hoped she'd say something that could make me consider staying and working things out. I still love her in a way, just thinking about it hurts more than eating jalapenos for breakfast. I set the terms with my wife, stating that for us to attempt marriage counseling, she must fully disclose everything about the affair. I want to know when it started, and she must sever all ties with her affair partner. Quitting her job is non-negotiable. I don't want her near him. However, she's making it difficult, claiming she already disclosed everything, which I doubt. She insists she's been ignoring his calls, but I'm skeptical. They work together and she holds a high position, making quitting challenging. She suggests a department transfer, but I'm unsure if that's sufficient. I want her to make him transfer or leave the company altogether. If she can't do that, then we might as well end things now. I'm so angry and hurt by all of this, and I just want her to prove that she's willing to do whatever it takes to save our marriage. Update: it was an excellent day for me because I finally discovered the identity of the other guy. I left work early and went to my wife's workplace to see the car he drives. I found it and waited for him to finish work and leave. I followed him for 25 miles until he arrived home, getting his full contact information and even finding his picture online. Turns out he's married with 3 kids, and I also have his wife's information. After a few days of thinking, I eventually called his wife and disclosed everything. She was understandably angry and wanted to confront her husband right away, but I advised her to think it through first. She mentioned they had a summer vacation planned with extended families, so the timing wasn't ideal for a confrontation. It's been a couple of days, and I'm unsure if she's confronted him yet. She said they have a summer vacation planned next week with extended families and kids, so they weren't sure about the timing for confronting. Following my conversation with my unfaithful wife, she agreed to provide me with a written rundown of when the affair began, switch teams at work to distance herself from her fling buddy within 3 weeks, and cut off all contact with him. Now, I know some of you might say, call HR and expose those cheaters, but honestly, what's in it for me? I make decent money, but she still brings home the bacon, and if we split now, I won't have to pay any cash for child support or alimony. The only thing that worries me is the thought of a custody battle. Don't get me wrong, I'm still considering ending this marriage. I only agreed to the meeting to make it seem like I still care and buy some time to talk to a lawyer and figure out my options. So I read the timeline my wife gave me, and it was like a stab to the heart. It was clear that she's head over heels for her fling partner, even though she keeps apologizing and acting like she wants to work on our marriage. But let's face it, the ship has sailed. If I agreed to go to couples counseling, I'd basically be telling her that I'm okay with her cheating. I bet her affair partner wants to stay with his own wife, and she's just using me as a backup plan. This morning, I contacted 3 lawyers downtown to find the right one for me. I ended up with a badass female lawyer who heard my story and reviewed the written timeline. She said it was smart of me to gather that evidence, and even if it's not entirely true, it could still help my case if things get messy in court. She also informed me that in my state, I have 3 months from the time I found out about the cheating to file for divorce. Otherwise, it'll look like I'm okay with it. I'm hoping this will come in handy during the custody battle, just in case. Update: last night, I informed my unfaithful wife that I'm going ahead with the divorce. I initially planned to serve her the papers at her workplace, but I decided to have a mature conversation first. I wasn't ready for her reaction. She accused me of tricking her and giving false hope about fixing things. I fired back, reminding her that she made her choices when she acted inappropriately in a parking lot. It escalated into a heated argument with both of us yelling. At one point, she started crying and pleaded for forgiveness, claiming she loves me. I despise her for putting me in this situation and ruining my family. But I know I had to do what's best for me. After meeting with my lawyers, I went to Kinko's to print the legal documents. When my wayward wife returned home, I had the papers ready for her to sign. She acted surprised and tried to convince me we could reconcile, but I saw through it. I reminded her that she lied about her affair for 2 years, destroying any trust I had. I told her to sign the papers for the sake of our kids, but she refused, insisting on consulting her lawyer first. She even had the audacity to claim she didn't want to be with her affair partner and wanted me back. Yeah, right, she had her chance and blew it. Despite her tears and pleas, I'm done with her. As I walked away, she switched from crying to an angry tone, yelling, "Keep walking away like a coward. I will not sign anything till I speak to my lawyer." One day, she eventually signed the papers, probably after consulting her own lawyer. Despite the divorce proceedings, she continues with her daily chores, like cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the kids. She might be trying to show she can handle everything alone, but we all know she can't resist my charming personality and the benefits of being married to me. Update: got some interesting news today. The spouse of the person my wife cheated with gave me a call out of the blue, not sure how she got my number. Maybe I shared it when I confronted her and her cheating husband in her office. She was a bit secretive on the phone, suggesting we meet for lunch at a cafe tomorrow. Surprisingly, I'm also scheduled to meet her this afternoon. Feeling nervous and on edge, who knows what she's got up her sleeve. Last time we spoke, she was upset about her husband's cheating ways. Seems like a hard-working business owner, maybe in her late 30s. Initially, I thought she and her husband were in their 40s, but who am I to judge? Maybe they've had a tough life. I took a snapshot of my wife's timeline on my phone and sent the hard copy to my lawyer. Also gave my boss a heads up that I might not be back from lunch. Who knows? Maybe I won't return at all. We decided to meet at a nearby coffee shop not far from where I work. As I walked in, the other betrayed spouse was already standing up, ready to face me. Tried to play it cool with a handshake, but she went in for the hug, bit awkward, but I guess we had an instant connection. Both betrayed and left to pick up the pieces. She started by thanking me for telling her about her husband's infidelity. Then she dropped news that would rock my world. Apparently, she had some inside info on my wife that would really upset me. She thought about writing me a letter but said it wouldn't do it justice. Plus, she wanted to send a message to my wife, but was afraid things would turn ugly if they met in person. So she asked me to relay the message to my wife to stay away from her husband. Turns out this betrayed spouse was no dummy. Instead of losing it like I did, she took my advice and hired a private investigator to gather evidence, even installed spy software on her husband's phone, and retrieved emails and texts between him and my wife for the past 4 years. Unbelievable. Meanwhile, my wife guards her phone like it's the Hope Diamond, not letting me near it. So it turns out my cheating wife and her side piece have been sneaking around on some secret app, avoiding their work email for anything romantic. But the private investigator found their texts, and it's clear they've been up to no good for 3 years, turning physical 2 years ago. Even though there are no hotel receipts, the investigators saw they met up at least twice a week in hotels and bars. And get this, the affair started a few months before she got a promotion. Messages show my wife was an active participant while the other guy just went with the flow. I mean, even a dude like me can see that. Gotta say, I'm more crushed now than when I caught her in the parking lot. Feel like a total loser, humiliated and embarrassed. I've loved this woman, and this is how she repays me, by calling me old, unadventurous, and lacking ambition. They even made fun of me behind my back. The meeting with the other betrayed spouse took forever, like 3 or 4 hours. She gave me a copy of all the evidence, since she had a backup plan to show her the timeline my wife wrote. But it was so obvious it would have been embarrassing to bring up. After the meeting, she hugged me again, and we said our goodbyes. I went to a nearby bar to drown my sorrows. Looks like my ex never loved me, even though I thought we had a good relationship. She was hiding a whole other side of herself, showing it off to another guy without me knowing. Meanwhile, I was just the guy she settled for, the one taking care of the kids and keeping the house in order while she was busy climbing the career ladder with other guys from work. Another woman whose husband was cheated on gave me names of other married managers my wife had hookups with. Apparently, she decided to focus on one guy, but who knows how long the other flings lasted. Update: I feel really betrayed and hurt right now, and I want her to feel the pain too. This woman is just plain evil, and she needs to pay for her lies. I won't just confront her like a wimp, I need to show her I'm not weak. So I'll try something she'd never expect, something that'll shock her. I want to hurt her so badly that it exposes who she really is. The thing is, my wife is excellent at putting up a fake front for the community. She always acts like the sweetest, most wholesome lady to our neighbors, bringing over casseroles and such. And at church, she's the to usher and model Christian wife, always with a smile on her face. But deep down, she's very insecure about her image and what people think of her. She's a type, a personality, a natural leader, and to her parents, she's daddy's little angel with a halo over her head. They think she can do no wrong, and they always blamed me for our marriage problems. They have no idea I caught her hooking up with some guy in a parking lot. But now it's time to take off the kid gloves. It's time to shatter their little bubble. I'm going to send all those juicy text messages and pics to her parents and let them see their precious daughter for who she really is. So I went to Kinko's to make copies of the evidence that the other betrayed wife gave me. Then I met up with my lawyer to discuss my options. I showed her the evidence and asked if I could sue my wife's employer and those 2 other married managers. My goal is not to win, but to expose those cheaters and create a scandal that would make great headlines. My lawyer said we could sue for alienation of affection, but that requires my wife's cooperation, and we both know she won't do that. However, my lawyer did draft some legal documents that I can use to give my wife an ultimatum, to get a better deal in the divorce settlement and move out of my house as soon as possible. This will be her wake-up call. I will threaten her that I was going to sue her company and the managers she had closeness with, and I will also notify the local papers. I'll also let the local papers know about it just to make it sound more dramatic. I mean, even if the lawsuit is stupid and gets thrown out of court, the damage will already be done once the public hears about it. And then she'll have no choice but to move out of our family home and leave it all to me. Oh, and yeah, I got a lawyer too. Draft a legal paper to sue her employer and those managers just in case. Yesterday, I had to pick up my kids from school and take them to my wife's parents' place. They're sweet old folks in their 70s, retired and all that jazz. I decided to have a little chat with them and show them some evidence of their daughter's affair, including some naughty pics that really drove the point home. The poor dad was heartbroken and kept apologizing to me, while the mom couldn't believe her precious church-going daughter could do such a thing. It was kind of sad to see them realize what their daughter was really up to. I mean, I knew it would hurt them, but still. When I got back home, my wife was on the phone with her parents, sobbing her eyes out. But the moment she saw me, she hung up and started freaking out, asking all sorts of questions about the evidence I had on her. She was shaking and sweating like crazy, like her whole world was about to collapse. And you know what? It kind of felt good to see her like that. I totally caught my wife off guard when I dropped some major lawsuit intel on her. I mean, her reaction was priceless. She looked like she was about to hurl and even pulled on her hair like she was trying to rip it out. And just for kicks, I told her I had already called up the local paper to give them the scoop. Of course, this sent her into panic mode. She started begging me to drop the whole thing, offering up an amicable divorce and even alimony payments. But all I wanted was for her to pack her bags and get out of our house as soon as possible. I straight up told my ex that I wanted her to hit the road and take her name off the deed to our love shack. Oh, and I also wanted 50% custody of the kids and a chill divorce. She hesitated for a sec, but then caved and said absolutely, while still groveling on the floor. My ex begged me to give her a week to vacate the premises. She seemed to have no other option since all her friends are married, and her parents are currently giving her the cold shoulder. I suggested she stay in an extended stay hotel until the condo I had already rented was ready for her to take over. And that's exactly what happened. 2 days later, she was out of my hair and in a new place. We ended up finalizing the divorce a few weeks later, and I got custody of the kids in the house. It was probably a little bit of a hit for her since she makes more money than me, but hey, that's life. Now that it's all said and done, I'm getting back in shape and staying away from the booze. And as far as dating goes, well, I'm not in any rush to jump back into the game.
Story 2.
I foolishly opened my marriage in secret, and now I want my precious husband and life back. I'm a 25-year-old woman, and my boyfriend is 26. We started dating when I was 18 and he was 19. We were together for 3.5 years before deciding to move in together when he finished college. Since then, we've been living together, and our relationship is fantastic. We're not only a couple but also best friends, and we share a deep romantic connection. I'm crazy about him and hope to marry him one day, as well as become the mother of his children. Although I had hoped we'd be married by now. I respect his decision to establish himself before making such a significant commitment. Now, here's the issue. Recently, a new colleague joined our company, and I was responsible for bringing him on board and providing basic training. His name is Jay, and he's a former professional athlete in great shape. The twist is that Jay is married, and he and his wife have an open marriage. They have a child together, conceived while she was still married to another man, and she continues to have a physical relationship with her ex and others. During one of our conversations, Jay shared all of this with me. Initially, I found it to be quite an unusual and unconventional situation, especially the dynamic his wife has with her ex-husband. When the topic came up, Jay asked me for my thoughts on open relationships. I made it clear that I was completely against the idea and that I would never want to share my husband or be with another man. Our discussion on this matter ended with Jay suggesting, "Let me know if you ever want to try it sometime. I think you would change your mind." I was surprised by his comment but brushed it off with a laugh and changed the subject. As the weeks have gone by, Jay and I have grown closer in our work relationship. I must admit that I've developed a strong physical attraction to him. In the past week, we've started flirting with each other, and I'm becoming concerned because I can see where this is heading. I haven't discussed any of this with my boyfriend because I know he would end our relationship immediately. It's not that he's possessive, but he firmly believes in the concept of one woman and one man in a relationship. Even just flirting with Jay would be a major breach of his trust. I've decided to take a risk and talk to my boyfriend about open relationships to see if he's interested. For those who have experience with this, I have a few questions. 1. How did you initiate the conversation? 2. What did you say? 3. What happened to your relationship with your partner? Did it improve or worsen after opening it up? I talked to my boyfriend about it, but he immediately rejected the idea. I didn't directly ask for an open relationship. Instead, I mentioned Jay. I told my boyfriend that Jay was a new colleague and that my coworkers mentioned he and his wife were in an open marriage, and she still had a physical relationship with her ex-husband. My boyfriend's immediate response was, "That's just disgusting." He went on to say that Jay must be foolish because no man would accept his partner being intimate with another man. He also had some less pleasant words for Jay's wife. In response, I just laughed, agreed with him, and changed the subject. It seems like my desire to be physically intimate with Jay won't be fulfilled, at least not in the near future. In the meantime, I plan to increase our activities at home to satisfy this burning longing within me. Update? I'm here with an update, but it's about a different yet related issue. I've made a terrible mistake, one that has cost me my relationship with my boyfriend and any hopes of marrying him and having children together. If you remember from my last update, I mentioned that my boyfriend had rejected the idea of an open relationship, and I decided not to pursue it any further. Well, a week later, my boyfriend went to Chicago for a trade show, and I was home alone from Tuesday through Thursday that week. On Tuesday morning, Jay and I were flirting heavily in the office, and during our lunch break, we went to his apartment and were intimate. I deeply regret this now, and I can't believe how foolish and selfish I was. We repeated the same on Thursday. While the physical aspect was satisfying, it didn't compare to what I have with my boyfriend. Jay has an attractive physique, but he couldn't match the emotional connection I have with my boyfriend. So our encounters felt empty. After our meeting on Thursday, I had planned to make it our last, but I didn't want to hurt Jay's feelings, so I didn't say anything that day. On a different note, I was shocked by the way Jay and his wife live. Their apartment is packed with exercise equipment, and it's in disarray, with clothes scattered everywhere and things out of place. My boyfriend and I are quite tidy, so this really bothered me and somewhat detracted from the experience. Sorry for going off topic, but I needed to get that off my chest. It really bothered me. Moving on to Thursday, my relationship with my boyfriend and my hopes for a happy life took an abrupt turn. When I arrived home, my boyfriend was already there, and I could sense something was wrong. He was standing by the door wearing his coat and holding his car keys. I was excited to see him and tried to kiss and hug him, but he kept me at arm's length with his hand. Then he said something that shattered me. He told me he had been contacted on social media by Jay's wife, who asked if he would like to meet up and possibly go on a date since Jay and I were now involved physically. They had a call, and she spilled all the details about my relationship with Jay. Apparently, she and Jay enjoy being with other couples, which is their biggest turn-on. Hearing this news left me breathless, and I felt like I might faint, so I had to sit down. I immediately began explaining and apologizing, but he simply said, "Be quiet." Then he handed me a document, an eviction notice that he created himself using an online template and intended to file legally. He informed me that I had 30 days to move out before he initiated legal proceedings. In the meantime, he mentioned that he would be staying with his parents and instructed me not to contact him. I couldn't hold back the tears and made another attempt to reach out to him, but he kept his distance. After that, he rushed out the door, down the parking lot, and drove away quickly. I tried to catch up with him, but he was too fast. For the next 3 hours, I attempted to contact him, but he didn't respond. I then called his mom to inquire if he was with her. She confirmed that he was, but said he couldn't speak. When I asked if I could come over, she firmly declined, stating that I was no longer welcome there. Hearing her words tore me apart. I tried to explain that I had made a terrible mistake and would never hurt him again, but she responded with simple acknowledgments like, "Okay, and yeah," and asked if I had anything else to say. When I declined her invitation, she simply said, "Take care and have a nice life," before hanging up on me. I felt miserable throughout the night and kept sending texts to my BF, some of which now seem crazy when I look back on them. Among other things, I repeatedly apologized, professed my love for him, and emphasized that he was the only one I loved. I also sent him a text where I stated that the physical relationship with Jay meant nothing, that it was just a foolish experiment, and that he was far superior. It might not have been the best thing to say, but it was true. I thought maybe boosting his ego would make him break down and reach out to me, but it didn't. The following day, I drove to his office, although I didn't enter the building. Instead, I sent him a text letting him know that I was waiting outside in the parking lot and intended to stay there all day because I wanted to talk to him. He didn't respond, but around 11 a.m. I spotted him walking toward my car. Seeing his handsome face approaching brought tears to my eyes, as I love this man deeply. I had hoped he would come to my side, pull me out of the car, and start hugging and kissing me, but instead, he walked around to the passenger side and got in. We spent the next hour talking, and he allowed me to express myself without interruption. Once I had poured out all my thoughts and feelings, he calmly stated that cheating was a deal-breaker for him, and our relationship was effectively over. He expressed a desire to maintain a civil tone, but made it clear that he wanted no further involvement with me. Despite my continuous pleas for a second chance, he remained resolute. As our conversation neared its end, I inquired, "Where will I go when I move out?" I knew I couldn't afford an apartment on my own in the metropolitan area. In response, he told me that I would have to figure that out, but he assured me he would provide a check equivalent to his share of our expenses for 1 month to help me get started in a new place. Despite my attempts to beg and plead, he repeatedly responded with a firm no. When I had run out of things to say, I asked if I could kiss and hug him. He agreed to a hug, but declined the kiss. We embraced for a good 10 minutes before he gently pulled away. Afterward, he returned to his office, leaving me in tears and berating myself for the next hour. I'm back with a new set of questions, this time as someone deeply remorseful for cheating. Is there hope for my relationship? Are there steps I can take to rebuild my boyfriend's trust in me? I want to emphasize that this was a one-time mistake, and I'm desperate to hear from women who have faced similar situations, especially if you manage to salvage your relationships. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win him back because I'm struggling without him. I want to express my gratitude for the responses I've received so far and any future responses to this post. Sharing this with someone has provided me with tremendous relief. I'm so ashamed of my actions that I can't bring myself to discuss them with anyone I know. Having this community to message with has truly been a lifeline. Thank you from the bottom of my heart once again. Update: it's been a while, and many of you have messaged me asking for an update on my relationship. I'm sad to announce that my boyfriend and I have officially broken up. Despite my weeks of pleading for another chance, I came to realize that he wasn't going to change his mind. I ended up quitting my job and relocating to my hometown. I'm temporarily staying with my parents until I can regain my footing. I couldn't afford to live in the city on my own, and I wanted to avoid working at the same company as Jay, so I decided to uproot myself and return home. I deeply regret that he found out. Now I feel like he has ruined my life. Yes, I understand that I can start over, but it's an incredibly challenging process. Finding a man might be easy, but finding an amazing man like my ex-boyfriend is exceptionally difficult. My grandma used to tell me that discovering a great man is like finding a diamond in a coal mine. She emphasized that if you ever find one, you should hold on to it and cherish it forever. She told me numerous times that she believed my boyfriend was a diamond, and I was one of the lucky ones. It turns out she was absolutely right. Regarding my ex-boyfriend, he appears to be doing well without me. He's thriving in his job, and he has never attempted to contact me. I sent several texts during the holidays, but he never responded, so I eventually gave up. I'm currently struggling with depression, but I recently started individual counseling and it's proving to be quite helpful. I want to address something here in response to some of the negativity within this community. The notion that once a cheater, always a cheater doesn't hold true for everyone, and it certainly doesn't apply to me. I can assure you that I will never cheat on a partner again. You can take my word for it. Additionally, my counselor mentioned that many individuals who cheat typically don't repeat their actions. So there you have a professional perspective on it. To those who've been supportive, thank you very much, except for the haters. Alright, that was a fun story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Stay tuned, and let's dive in. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I want to get my 25-year-old boyfriend back. To summarize, I accidentally cheated on him, and I'm feeling really guilty and upset that my friends told him about it. I need help figuring out what to say to him. A few days ago, I made a mistake in my relationship with my boyfriend of 2 years. I can't handle the guilt anymore. I used to believe he was the love of my life, and part of me still does. Our relationship had started to feel a bit stagnant. We went on dates, he bought me things, but I started to feel less important. There was a lack of spontaneity, if you know what I mean. I talked to him about it, hoping we could resolve things. Then one night, my friends and I went out, and I was having a great time. We were dancing, and a group of guys started dancing with us. I felt a bit overwhelmed because I wasn't used to being so close to other guys. However, I made sure none of them got too close from behind, so I thought it was fine. After dancing, a few of us sat down and started talking. There was one guy I was chatting with who was cute and friendly. He asked for my number and I gave him a fake one. Some guys can be persistent, so I left it at that and moved away from him. Then another guy from the group approached me and noticed I wasn't mingling as freely as my friends. We started talking, and he mentioned that he had recently ended a long-term relationship. I should have stopped there, but I couldn't resist asking him what had happened with his ex. He explained their relationship had become dull and routine, lacking excitement. Curiously, I shared that I felt the same way and asked why he didn't stay with her. He revealed that he enjoyed the freedom of meeting other women without any attachments or commitments. We continued talking for the rest of the night until my friends and I decided to leave. Before parting ways, he gave me his phone number. On the ride to my friend's house, I texted him and said I'd get an Uber and go home. However, instead, I went to his house. It was a nice place, with his own home and a fancy car in the driveway. When I entered, we continued our conversation and eventually we started kissing and ended up having sex. Afterward, I cuddled with him and was about to leave, but we began kissing again, leading to another round of intimacy. I fell asleep in his bed. The next morning, panic set in because I hadn't intended to spend the night. My boyfriend tried calling and texting me, but I didn't respond. Some of my friends texted and even called my dad to check if I was okay. Eventually, I left his place and called my dad to reassure him that I was fine, claiming that my phone had run out of battery. When I arrived at our place, my boyfriend inquired about my well-being. Confused about what to say, I simply mentioned that I had gone to a friend's house after our outing and dozed off there. After taking a shower, my emotions overwhelmed me, and I began to cry. I never intended for things to unfold the way they did the previous night. As I finished showering, he was waiting for me. He informed me that a friend had messaged him, claiming I had taken an Uber home. Holding my phone, he explained that he checked the location and read my text messages. He confronted me, asking if I had cheated on him the previous night, and once again, tears welled up in my eyes. I reassured him that I hadn't, and would never do such a thing. However, he remained silent, just standing there. I longed for his embrace, but when I tried to reach out to him, he retreated. Finally, he told me to leave before he called the authorities, so I reluctantly departed. It's been a few days since then, and I'm desperate to have him back. He meant everything to me. I've been struggling to eat, sleep, and I've even skipped my classes. I've also distanced myself from my friends, feeling that they played a role in ruining my relationship. It's disheartening that one mistake has led to this outcome. Has anyone gone through a similar situation? Is there anything I can say or do to win him back or make amends? A few days ago, I summoned the courage to return to our apartment, hoping there might be a chance to salvage what remained of our relationship. To my dismay, the apartment was completely empty except for my clothes and some miscellaneous items I had purchased myself. It felt like walking into a scene from a horror movie. The place was devoid of warmth, filled with emptiness and dampness. Everything that held our shared memories, from carefully chosen furniture to cherished moments, had vanished. It was as if he had wiped away all traces of himself from our home. Literally, every possession of his had disappeared. The furniture, appliances, even my laptop, a gift from him, and the food he had stocked in the fridge, all gone. The apartment had been stripped down to its bare essentials. The only thing left in the fridge was a bag of pretzels that I had bought for myself. He had taken everything he had brought when we first moved in together. I was overcome with panic and tried calling him, but he didn't answer. I felt shocked and abandoned. Who could do such a thing? Did he really care so little about me that he left me in an empty house? It was as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. No response, no sign of him. I'm utterly lost and don't know what to do next. How can I even begin to make things right? Is this situation even legal? We both signed the lease, so shouldn't I have been informed if he was breaking the lease? And what about my laptop? I was the primary user and all my files were on it. I need to recover them as well. Does anyone have any advice to offer? Update: I reached out to my ex using a different phone number. He informed me that he's finished with our relationship and has already relocated. He advised me not to search for him. While he hasn't officially terminated the lease, he has no intention of renewing it in May. He remained adamant about keeping the laptop, claiming it was legally his since he had the receipt. When I explained that I only required it to copy my files, he mentioned that he had formatted it and wiped all data, just as he had erased me from his life. So what steps should I take next? You might not like me after hearing my story, but remember, you're here for a tale of revenge. I'm currently a 36-year-old guy. Let's change the names a bit. My ex-wife Rebecca is now 34 years old. Rebecca and I were what you'd call college sweethearts. We navigated college and faced the usual challenges of young college life. We tied the knot in our early 20s. I was 25 and she was 23. Our marriage had a rocky start, not immediately, but situation-wise. I was studying medicine while she pursued accounting. Some things were fine with me, but they bothered her. Despite being married, she acted as if she were footloose and fancy-free. I have to admit, back then I didn't see it as a problem. Now, let's jump to 2016, when she landed a job as an accountant. I was pleased because it paid well, and the company owner, James, happened to be a college buddy of mine. As time passed, instead of growing closer, tensions mounted between us. She began complaining about various things. She disliked our living situation, had issues with my actions, and lost her taste for the food she once adored. I'm a fantastic cook, and she used to love my meals. Our arguments escalated to the point where she'd hurl insults at me, calling me worthless and claiming she earned more than I did. This on its own might seem like a typical part of many relationships, as most couples have their ups and downs, but if it had stopped here, I wouldn't be sharing my story. The turning point occurred when I heard from our mutual friends that Rebecca and James were spending time together with some of them. I found this odd. Why would she hang out with him? Why were they socializing with our mutual friends without me knowing? I confronted both of them, and they explained it was a last-minute plan that didn't include me because I was working and out of town that day. Maybe they'd planned it in advance. I'm not sure, so I let it go. Then came 2017, the year my marriage fell apart. I became increasingly suspicious. For those of you in relationships, you know it's a warning sign when your intimate life suddenly vanishes. I grew more paranoid, and whenever I tried to discuss things, I was met with resistance. I'm not perfect. I started yelling at her constantly, demanding answers because something felt amiss. Your closest person in life seldom talks or spends time with you, and they insist there's nothing wrong. Does that seem normal? It can't be. This should have been a fantastic year for us since we both paid off our student loans and were reaching our financial peak. It should have been a great time. My friends and I had the idea to open a small medical shop as a side business. One of those friends was Saladin. He suggested we celebrate at a pub. While we were there, I noticed a woman who looked exactly like Rebecca. It wasn't too alarming, but it caught my attention. She was dancing with another man, and the lighting was dim. As I got a closer look, lo and behold, it was Rebecca and James, dancing hand in hand. I could say it didn't bother me much because they are friends and colleagues, right? I was there with my colleagues and she was with hers. But of course, it was bothering me, so I decided to send her a text asking where she was. She usually heads home at this time. She replied that she was already at home. Now that was a major red flag. A huge red flag. Almost like a communist parade. I told her to stop lying because it was clear she wasn't being truthful. She seemed to get paranoid and texted that she was on her way home. After that, she left the pub and I followed shortly. On my way back home, I knew I needed to have a direct conversation with her about James. So when I got home, I did just that. I asked her face-to-face about James, and her reaction was as if she had seen a ghost because she clearly wasn't expecting that question. The way she reacted was far from what I would consider normal when asking about a friend. She mumbled and tried to play it off, but as I listened to her speak, I already had a strong suspicion that something was seriously wrong. That night, my curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to snoop through her phone. Please don't judge me, but I felt compelled to find out the truth. We had known each other's passwords, but she had changed hers, so I couldn't access it. However, the following day, while I was snooping, I managed to get it. I know it's not the best course of action, but I was desperate to uncover the truth, and there it was, a multitude of texts, countless questionable pictures, degrading comments, and even her referring to him as Daddy. My wife and I had made a promise to each other that we would always be transparent and open if there was anything we needed to explore. Unfortunately, she broke that vow too. She shared with him how thrilling she felt that night at the pub. I went through everything. What hurt the most was that she had told me herself that if either of us ever got bored in the relationship or needed to spice things up, we would let each other know. She shattered everything. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. I went to bed and cried deeply into the night. I want you to know that I had thought about coming up with a plan to get back at her secretly, but I didn't. I was overwhelmed with anger and emotion. The next morning, I made the mistake of confronting her without any evidence in hand. She yelled at me and stormed out, accusing me of being abusive and insane. That afternoon, her friends created a messenger group where they all teamed up to criticize me. She had apparently told all our friends that I was abusive. When she returned home that night, she informed me that she was in love with James and wanted a divorce. I asked her to talk it over first, but it turned into her berating me. I yelled back, and she didn't hesitate to call the cops. When they arrived, I was told to spend the night elsewhere. I went to my sister's, and when I returned the next morning, James's car was parked there. Are you kidding me? It was clear no further explanation was needed. He was intentionally doing it. Actually, she was intentionally doing it as well. I consulted with a lawyer. Since we didn't have a prenuptial agreement, she had already filed a complaint against me for being abusive, which didn't bode well for me. She never attempted to apologize or make amends, not once. Unfortunately, our country's laws don't consider infidelity as a fault, so even with that, she's entitled to half of everything I have. But her complaint could lead to a lawsuit against me. A few days later, I was fortunate to stay at my sister's house for the time being. I tried reaching out to Rebecca, but she wouldn't respond to me. Then she contacted me and suggested we get a divorce. That's it. After 12 years of being in a relationship and 4 years of marriage, she ended it with a text. To make matters worse, I was convinced that James was taking my place. The first time I saw her after that, she handed me the divorce papers. Everyone in our friend circle believed that I was an offender, and James was seen as her savior. They thought she did the right thing by cheating on me. We were officially divorced at the beginning of 2018. She was openly dating James during our divorce, as he had become her life, and she was doing much better without me. I lost my job, my house, my reputation, and some of our mutual friends, all because of her affair and lies. I had to relocate to a different city to start fresh. Saladin played a significant role in helping me with this fresh start. He secured me a job that paid decently, although it was nothing like my previous one, but it was better than other alternatives. As I worked hard to rebuild my life, Saladin and I became even closer friends. My dating life was essentially over because I found it difficult to trust anyone. There was no communication between Rebecca and me, and the last I heard was that she had moved in with James, and they were doing well. Fast forward to the end of 2020, my life was actually improving. Despite the global pandemic forcing us to work tirelessly and with sore backs, it filled our pockets. Our pharmacy business venture became successful, allowing me to earn good money. A friend of mine tipped me off that James and Rebecca had split up. It was completely unexpected to learn that her hero, James, had cheated on her and left her in a tough spot. He abandoned her with a child that was undoubtedly his. To make matters worse, he had been absent since the baby was born and hadn't even acknowledged the child by signing the birth certificate. So now Rebecca's raising that child as a single parent. I heard she tried dating after James left, but she claims she's still not over James or me. The audacity of this woman. A part of me felt a sense of satisfaction with the aftermath. However, I have to admit, I really missed having her around. So the next part might make you cringe, but I sent her an email to inquire about how she was doing. She didn't anticipate hearing from me. We exchanged emails and reconnected. Our first meeting took place in 2021 after several years. When I saw her, it was a shock. She looked significantly worse. She had gained weight, lost the charm she once had, and appeared constantly exhausted. She opened up about James and revisited the old wounds of her infidelity and lies. I got some closure. which provided a bit of relief, I suppose. She sincerely apologized, admitting that she wasn't thinking clearly about what she was doing to me. She claimed that James poisoned her mind against me. Honestly, just her appearance alone infuriated me and fueled a desire for vengeance. It was evident that karma had already caught up with her, and the hardships of life had brought her to her current state. It should have been enough, but remember the warning at the beginning. Yes, even after all she had done, I'm not blameless either. You can judge me, but that's not why I'm here. I felt the urge to exact revenge, and so I did. I wasn't finished with her. I told her I would forgive her if she came clean to everyone and cleared my name. She did that, even if it meant losing many friends. My name was cleared, but she had to face the consequences because it was the truth. She wanted us to rekindle our relationship, essentially forcing me to raise James's child. I told her I was interested in starting over, but only if we took it seriously. That meant we needed to start dating again and seriously consider marriage first. Only then would I consider legally adopting her child. I have to admit, the little guy was adorable, and I had grown fond of him. Here's the ugly truth. I was already seeing someone else. It's safe to say I was cheating on that woman with Rebecca. She was a client of mine from another country. We were in a long-distance relationship, so we were dating, but it wasn't entirely exclusive, if that makes sense. Her name is Lisa. Lisa was Saladin's cousin. I had already informed her about what had happened beforehand. She was initially against my revenge plan and uncomfortable with assisting me in my intense request, but I managed to persuade her to help me. She understood that I needed to go through with it. Rebecca and I were residing in different cities, so I never moved in with her. However, I played it cool by claiming I needed to travel extensively for business, so I was unintentionally raising Rebecca's hopes, only to later disappoint her, much like she had done to me. The unfortunate part is that we were physically intimate, but we used protection. Rebecca genuinely believed she had found love again. I encouraged her to seek therapy to address her issues. Everyone noticed how much better and happier she seemed now that she was with me. She would frequently express gratitude for her good fortune, always followed by apologies directed at me. She started doing things for me that she used to do when we were married and deeply in love. Trust me when I say I had a lot of emotions tied to this woman. I reconsidered my revenge plan and started having doubts about breaking her heart the way I had fantasized. It would be terrible, the kind of trauma that sticks with someone for life. But then I remembered what she had done to me when we were married, when we had made vows that she broke. James may be an awful person, but she willingly chose to betray me. She never thought twice about breaking my heart, so why should I hesitate to think about hers? So I decided to proceed with my plan. Her birthday was approaching last October, and lockdown restrictions had eased up. Someone important to me, Lisa, was in my city. As a birthday gift, I invited Rebecca to go ring shopping. She chose her favorite ring, and I had it wrapped. She was overjoyed. That night, she came to me in tears, repeatedly apologizing for hurting me the way she had. She seemed genuinely remorseful, but I had no feelings left for her except indifference. On Rebecca's birthday, I drove her to our favorite spot, the same place where we got married for the first time. It's a beautiful location surrounded by nature. Lisa was already waiting there, so when we arrived at the spot, I introduced Lisa to Rebecca as my girlfriend. Rebecca turned pale and asked me what I meant by that. She questioned what she was to me, so I introduced her to Lisa as Rebecca, my ex-wife and friend with benefits. At that moment, I proposed to Lisa using that same ring. Rebecca lost her composure and began yelling. I responded by questioning how she could possibly expect us to reconcile when she had destroyed everything. I made it clear that I could never date someone like her again. She kept asking if everything we had meant nothing, and my response was a resounding no. Our last moments together were merely a form of closure. I helped her confront the pain she had caused me. Lisa was holding me back, concerned about Rebecca's suffering. I firmly insisted that Rebecca needed to leave, and eventually she did. Afterwards, she repeated her previous actions. She told everyone that I had cheated and portrayed me as the villain. This time I took it in stride, and everyone saw her for the deceitful person she was. She had cheated on me and made me pay a steep price through false abuse allegations. And now she expected me to raise her child from her affair partner as my own and date her. The last time we communicated was in December of last year. She wrote me a letter expressing her apologies and regret for the pain she had caused me. She wished me a better life and, from what I heard, had no interest in dating. Her appearance hadn't improved either. In my case, you can probably figure it out. Lisa and I ended our relationship. There were other issues between us, not just what happened. Some people claim that I'm worse than my ex. Could you please specify how I'm worse than her? I loved her, and she cheated on me, resulting in me losing my home, my job, my reputation, and my friends. I behaved poorly towards everyone. I gave her a taste of her own medicine, yes, by hurting someone else, but am I now worse than her? I might have emotionally hurt her, but that's what she did to me. I'm not seeking judgment, I'm sharing my revenge story, and this is what you call nuclear revenge. Thank you.
Story 3.
I was packing for our annual fishing trip, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. This trip, a long-standing tradition with my closest friends, felt different this year. Normally, it was a group affair with us and our wives, a testament to our inseparable bond since grade school. However, changes were afoot. Kenny had to miss the initial part of the trip due to a business obligation, causing his wife Pam to also delay her participation. Then, Don had to cut his trip short for a meeting, leading his wife to stay behind. Once Becky learned that she'd be the only wife on the trip from the start, she opted not to join either. The alteration in plans was a letdown. Our trips were known for strengthening our friendships and spicing up our marriages, filled with laughter and memorable moments. Now it seemed like a shadow of its usual self. Despite my excitement for the trip, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss, particularly missing the intimate moments with Becky. Yet, the week leading up to the trip, Becky and I shared a passionate connection, a fervor that was both exhausting and deeply cherished. It was a bittersweet prelude to an altered tradition. For most of the year, our intimate life had settled into a routine that could be described as more functional than exciting, happening maybe twice a week. This was enough to meet our basic needs, but lacked the fiery passion we had in the early days of our marriage. Back then, our desire for each other was relentless, and we took advantage of every moment and place we could find for intimacy. However, about 5 years ago, this intensity began to wane, and our frequent encounters became less frequent, dwindling to just a few times a week. Becky seemed more and more reluctant, leading to frustration and occasional arguments on my part. Over time, though, I came to terms with this shift in our relationship, learning to handle my disappointment on my own. This context was on my mind that Thursday evening as I sat in the den, trying to relax with a beer after finishing my packing. Becky was upstairs, putting the kids to bed, a routine that had become as much a part of our lives as our changed intimate dynamics. After a while, I heard her footsteps as she came back down and went into the kitchen. She then joined me in the den, a glass of wine in her hand, and a look of concern on her face. "Honey," she began, her voice laced with seriousness, "we need to have an important talk. I understand this might upset you, but please hear me out before responding. I promise to address any questions you have afterward. I should have brought this up months ago, but I needed to gather some information first." Her tone was earnest, hinting at the gravity of what she was about to share. I'm not sure why, but I felt a surge of fear. Becky's demeanor was apologetic and fearful, yet her resolve was unmistakable. It was clear she was about to discuss something serious. After taking a deep breath and another large sip of her wine, she continued, "I know our intimate life hasn't been satisfying for you in the past few years, honey. Frankly, I haven't found much joy in our moments together either. Davy, I love you deeply, but, well, honey, you no longer stir the same excitement in me that you once did. And David, I want to remain your wife. You're an excellent father, a fantastic provider, and a true friend, but I'm seeking more than what you can offer me physically." I could feel anger starting to boil inside me. What was she implying? I thought she had grown distant, but what was the significance of the past week? I was certain I had made a significant impact. Just as I was about to interject, Becky raised her hand. "David, you promised to let me finish speaking before you responded." I bit down hard, forcing myself to lean back into my chair, trying to temper my rising frustration as she went on. "David, there's someone I've known for a while who captivates me in a way I cannot ignore. It's not just about sex. No, it's about making love in a way that I feel we can't anymore. I didn't want to go behind your back. I will still be here for you, but I need to be honest about my needs. Being with him makes me feel alive, reminiscent of how we felt at the beginning of our marriage. It's something I can't seem to get enough of." I jumped from my chair and began screaming at her. "You cheating witch! How could you?" Becky stood and jumped in front of me. She pushed me back and I fell into my chair. She stood over me and continued, "Shut up! I told you that you wouldn't like what I had to say, but you promised to listen to me before you said anything. Now shut up and listen." I found myself rooted to the spot, stunned, as Becky loomed over me, her gaze fierce with a determination I had never seen before. She went on, her words like a cold, unwelcome breeze. "I've spoken with Don about the divorce laws here, and you need to understand the reality. Divorcing me won't be in your favor. You'd end up losing significantly. I'd be entitled to a large portion of your income for alimony and child support. The courts would likely grant me custody of the kids and the house to ensure their stability. Half of our savings and your retirement fund would also be mine. You'd be left with barely enough to live on, let alone maintain the lifestyle you're accustomed to. It would mean our children growing up in a broken home, dealing with all the associated difficulties. For your sake and for the kids, you need to come to terms with my decision. Despite everything, I still hold love and respect for you. Our life won't change much on the surface. I'm not cutting you off entirely, it's just that I'll be absent now and then, maybe even taking trips with him for the time we need together." As her words sank in, a mix of disbelief and anger welled up inside me. Watching Becky return to her seat, a silence fell over the room, heavy and tense. After a moment, I managed to find my voice, a mix of hurt and outrage barely contained. "I can't believe this. How could you do this? After everything, to come to me with such a betrayal. How long has this been going on? Who is he?" Becky looked at me with some anger and said, "Using mean words won't solve anything, honey. I hope you can move past your feelings and we can continue living as we have for the past few years. I won't tell you how long this has been going on or when or where it happens, and I definitely won't tell you who I'm intimate with. It's none of your business, and if I catch you snooping around, I'll have to take actions you won't like. I've been seeing someone else and I'm done hiding it. I need to be honest because the sneaking around is too much. I want to be upfront about when I go out so you can take care of the kids, but I won't tell you who he is to avoid trouble. If you try to do something bad to him or me, it won't end well, especially for our kids who need you. Just know, if you try to hurt us, there will be consequences." Once again, I sat there shocked at how calmly Becky laid out her information. She seemed so sure, so prepared. It was clear she had been planning this moment for a while. Despite my thoughts and comments, she had an answer for everything. I said, "I should probably call the guys and let them know I won't be going on this trip. We need to sort some things out and I have a lot on my plate." I reached for my phone, but Becky grabbed my hand. Becky looked me straight in the eyes and said, "No, you're going on this trip. The kids will stay with your parents as we arranged. I don't plan on being alone for the next 2 weeks, and I don't want you around to cause any trouble or try to find out who I'll be with. You need this time away to process everything. I've made sure you'll actually go on this trip, and you won't like the consequences if you don't. You'll regret it if you change your plans now. My friends and I have everything covered. We have sources in town and almost everywhere you might go. If you try anything to find out about my lover or disrupt our lives, I'll find out, and you'll face serious consequences. You have to accept that my plan is solid, and it's what's best for me. If you cooperate, I'll make sure you don't have a miserable life. You'll continue living much like you have been." Becky went over to the desk and took out a thick envelope from her drawer of papers. She came back to me and handed it over. "Here, so you'll believe me. We made a written report of all your actions for the past month. Read it and you'll see we have it all down. We're aware of everything you do, and if you try to interfere with our plans, we'll know, and I won't go easy on you. Now I'm heading to bed. If you want some action tonight, come up. You'll see not much has to change unless you start causing trouble." I sat there in shock. Who was this woman? And what happened to my wife? I thought I knew her, but now I discover she's conniving and unfaithful. I watched her go upstairs, her hips swaying seductively. She knew she looked amazing and she was using it tonight, but for once, it didn't faze me at all. Finally, I opened the envelope and started reading. I was shocked. The report on me was incredibly detailed, capturing things I'd forgotten until I read them. It seemed like someone had been monitoring my every move, noting even minor incidents like spilling something on my shirt. It documented my glances at other women, something natural for anyone. The thoroughness of the report made me wonder if someone wealthy or connected was behind it, given its detail and scope. The report contained private details, including conversations I thought were private. This made me question if I was being bugged. As I considered my next steps, particularly how to leave my cheating wife without losing out in a divorce, I realized I needed advice. My lifelong friends, who shared a complicated history with me and Becky, seemed like the go-to, but then a dreadful thought struck me. What if Becky was involved with one of them? Seeking their counsel could backfire if the traitor was among them, sabotaging my plans before they even started. Just as I was deep in thought, Becky called out from the top of the stairs, provocatively suggesting I join her in bed rather than mulling over things alone. She then returned to our bedroom, leaving me to consider my next move in this complex situation. I never did go to bed. I spent the night on the couch in the den. Becky woke me up when she started making breakfast. She was mad and made sure I knew it. Get your sorry butt up, Dave. You need to clean up and get ready for work before the kids notice you didn't sleep in your own room last night. When you come back in 2 weeks, I expect you to act normal. If you mess things up in the family, I've already warned you about the consequences. I'm willing to meet your needs sometimes, but I expect you to do your part too. Just so you know, if you find another woman, I'm filing for divorce. I could feel the rage building up inside me. I yelled, "What's going on? You can mess around and think it's fine, but I can't do the same? Not that I want to, but why is it okay for you and not for me?" Becky smirked and said, "Come on, Dave. We both know you're satisfied with what you're getting from me now. If you go out looking for someone else, it's just to get back at me. I only seek outside the marriage because you're not meeting my needs as a husband. If you could give me what I need, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere, and I expect the same from you." I stammered. I was so mad I could barely talk, but I finally managed to respond. "I can't believe this. You never once talked to me about needing more or wanting to try something different in bed. You never asked me to do anything we don't normally do. How was I supposed to know you wanted something else if you never told me? I always made sure you were satisfied. Most of the time, you had multiple orgasms before we were done. How could I know something was missing when you acted like everything was fine and I was happy?" Becky stood there, then said, "Well, if you're asking now, you're really clueless, huh? It's not just about quantity, dear. It's about quality. You never learned how to please me, and I realized you never would. So I started getting what I needed elsewhere. Now, get dressed. I'm tired of hearing you complain." I went upstairs and went through my usual morning routine. We had a quiet breakfast, and when our son Sean asked what was wrong, I started to explain. But Becky interrupted, saying, "Your father's just dealing with a little issue. He'll be fine after his vacation." She shot me a glare before focusing on her breakfast. At work, I decided to ignore some of Becky's advice and canceled my trip with the guys. We were supposed to leave straight from work and meet at our favorite Denny's to drive together. I had a spacious F-150 truck, so we'd load our gear into it. Roger would ride with me, and Don would take his car since he had to return on Wednesday. I talked to Roger, explaining that something had come up, and I couldn't make it. I offered to let him use my truck to haul the gear. Roger exclaimed, "Oh, Dave, that's not happening. I just spoke to Becky, and she warned me you might try this. She mentioned you've been stressed lately, but she checked with your secretary and confirmed you have nothing important scheduled. I promised her I'd ensure you take this trip. If I have to, I'll come find you. You're coming with us, and you're going to enjoy yourself." I started to object and refuse outright, but then I felt a twinge of fear. What if Roger was... No, Becky said she was leaving this weekend, and Roger was joining me. But wait, Kenny was staying home and coming up midweek. Could it be him or someone else? I was stuck. I needed to think more and make plans. I wanted to buy some surveillance equipment, but how? From the report I read, Becky and her friends tracked my credit card purchases, phone calls, and even cash withdrawals. They could spot unusual spending overnight. I was sitting at my desk, lost in thought, when Becky called. As soon as I answered, she launched into a tirade. "David, I told you to go on your trip, and it's not wise for you to try to snoop into my affairs. Roger just informed me that you tried to back out. This is your final warning. Don't mess with me, or you'll lose everything and never see your children again. Do you understand this time?" She hung up abruptly, leaving me stunned once again. Roger had betrayed me. Did that mean he was involved, or was he genuinely concerned for me? Come to think of it, my old friends didn't seem as close as they used to be. It felt like they were now Becky's friends, and I was just tagging along. Could it be? Nah, not all of them. Anyway, I decided to go on the trip and met the guys at Denny's. While they were joking around, I sat gloomily. Finally, Don asked me what was wrong. I hesitated for a moment, then said, "Becky has some crazy idea, and I don't know how to deal with it. I can hardly believe she meant what she said, but if she did, my marriage is in trouble." Roger glanced at Don and remarked, "You know Becky's style, Don. She rang me up earlier today saying Loverboy here was trying to bail on our trip. She mentioned he's been on edge and hard to deal with lately and could use this time off to clear his head. I assured her we'd ensure he joined us and had a good time. Don chimed in, "Yeah, I've noticed his moodiness too over the past few months. He hasn't been as lively with us. A little adjustment in attitude won't hurt. And we can help with that. I've got beer and his favorite whiskey in my car." Turning to me, he added, "Nothing used to stop us from enjoying our cabin time. Sure, the ladies won't be there this time, but hey, more drinks and stories for us." We headed out, driving to the fishing spot by the stream. It was a short 2-hour ride, and we arrived in time for some serious drinking before bed. The next morning, both guys insisted on fishing, so we set off. The fishing helped me forget about the past few days, but thoughts of Becky crept back as we returned to the cabin. I couldn't believe she meant what she said, but it lingered in my mind. Instead of focusing on what I needed to do, I let the guys convince me to keep drinking with them. Later, during supper, as we continued drinking, Don looked at me and asked, "Okay, Dave, spill it. You look like you lost your best buddy, but I'm still here. What's eating you?" I thought, why not? If I didn't talk to someone I trusted, I'd lose it. These guys were trustworthy. We'd been pals since school started. I spilled the beans to Don and Roger about my marriage's declining bed life over the last 3 years and Becky's bombshell from Thursday evening. After I finished, Don looked at me and said, "Wow, Dave, are you sure that's what Becky said? I can't believe she'd even think something like that. We've known her for years and she's the sweetest, most caring woman I know." "Yeah, I know, but that's exactly what she said as far as I recall. Is it really true?" Don leaned back and said, "Well, Dave, I can't predict the outcome of a divorce, but she's right about some things. If she's really doing what you say, you have to decide how to handle it. If she's discreet, you need to consider if breaking up the family and the emotional toll on the children, you and Becky, is worth it. In custody battles, the courts usually favor the mother. Unless she's proven unfit, you'd likely lose custody of your kids. It's true you'd have to financially support them until they're grown, including college expenses. Because she doesn't work, you'd have to pay alimony until she remarries. You might lose your home, either giving it to her or selling it and splitting the money. You'd also have to share your savings and retirement funds. Child support is calculated by a formula that heavily burdens the supporting parent. Expect to lose a big chunk of your income for child support. You'd also need to provide health care for the kids." Dave was stunned. Hearing his attorney friend lay out the situation was even worse than Becky warning him about the consequences of her infidelity. "I have to know. She won't tell me whom she is with, and I need to know. When I find out, I will make sure she isn't with him any longer." "Dave, as your friend, I get where you're coming from. But as a court officer, I have to advise against that. It's tough, but I'm obligated to report these things. If harm comes to any of Becky's lovers, I'll have to report you. My suggestion? Just deal with it and keep things normal. Maybe if she's cheating, she'll change her mind or get it out of her system. Either way, it seems like sticking to the status quo would be better for you." "Don, I can't believe you're saying this. How would you feel if Shelley did something like that and threatened you? Would you just accept her cheating like Becky expects me to?" Don looked uneasy and said, "No, I'd probably be as upset as you are. But I trust Shelley wouldn't do that. She loves me and knows I'm the best partner she could have. I provide for our family and she wouldn't risk losing that or hurting our kids or me. Buddy, you should just accept your situation. If Becky's as vigilant as you say based on that report, you're in trouble. If you try to investigate her affair, she'll find out and retaliate. Heck, she might even know about this conversation if she's monitoring you closely. Did she know where we were going? Shoot, I didn't even think about that. Darn it, now I have more to worry about." Dave was confused by Roger's constant smile and Don's oddly happy expression during their conversation. He couldn't believe his friends were so relaxed about Becky treating him badly. Finally, he sighed, "Well, forget it. Let's just have some more drinks." The next morning, Dave woke up before his friends. Feeling the need for solitude, he grabbed his fishing gear and headed upstream to his favorite spot. Just as he was about to start fishing, his cell phone rang. He always kept it with him, although reception was spotty in some areas due to weak signals. He was surprised to get reception here. Seeing it was Becky calling, he chose not to answer. After Becky left a message, he listened to it. He was shocked to hear her say, "Well, honey, my sources say you got some good advice from Don last night. I hope you're going to follow it. I love you, and you're too good of a provider and father to lose. But if you do something foolish, I can manage the kids without you. Now have fun." Dave stared at the phone in disbelief. He knew the cabin didn't have cell service, and there was no landline. So how did she find out about his conversation with the guys? Oh no, his gear must be bugged, and someone must be nearby to pick up the transmission. He needed to search for it later. Dave didn't notice Roger and Don standing at the edge of the trees while he listened to the message. They grinned, gave each other a thumbs up, then vanished back into the woods, heading towards the cabin. Roger glanced at Don and asked, "Do you think that'll do it? Or should we keep the pressure on for a bit?" "I reckon we should keep those detailed reports going for a month or two, and we gotta keep urging him to just accept it," Don replied. "We've got a good thing happening now. If we can persuade him to let Becky keep fooling around and spend some full nights and weekends with us, we'll be way ahead. Imagine how much better it'll be to have longer sessions with her without any time constraints. She's so hooked on what we give her in bed that she'll do anything we say just to have more. If we play it smart, he can clue in our wives about the issue, and we can tell them we're out at night helping him figure out what's going on. That'll be solid cover." Dave fished until nearly noon, but his mind wasn't on it. He spent most of his time pondering his marriage, trying to figure out how to uncover Becky's affair, end it, and get back at her. However, he knew he couldn't do anything until he found out who, when, where, and why, if possible. On a cozy Friday evening, as the anticipation of their friend's arrival grew, Becky and the man beside her shared a warm, intimate moment. After spending the day preparing for a weekend at the cabin, they finally had some time to themselves. Becky, feeling playful and affectionate, approached him with a twinkle in her eye. She handed him a drink and sat close, their conversation flowing easily. The atmosphere was charged with excitement for the weekend ahead. They shared laughs, reminisced about past adventures, and eagerly discussed plans for the days to come. As they sat together, the connection between them deepened. Becky, feeling bold, leaned in for a tender kiss, which he warmly reciprocated. Their affectionate exchange soon turned into a gentle caress, as they continued to express their fondness for each other. Becky, feeling the warmth of the moment, whispered sweet nothings into his ear. The air was filled with anticipation, not just for the immediate tenderness they shared, but also for the joy that the coming days with their friends would bring. They talked about their friend's upcoming arrival, speculating with excitement about the activities they had planned. The mention of a friend's expected visit on Wednesday added to the bubbling excitement, sparking further conversation about the adventures that awaited them. As the evening progressed, they remained close, cherishing each other's company. Their connection was a testament to their deep bond, one that was amplified by the shared joy of the imminent reunion with their close friends. In that moment, they were reminded of the simple pleasures of companionship, the anticipation of good times ahead, and the beauty of moments spent with someone special. Becky exclaimed, "Oh God, I've been craving this for so long. I can't wait for the others to arrive. Isn't Dawn supposed to be here early Wednesday?" "Yeah, baby. Then you'll have both of us for 2 whole nights before I have to help babysit your loving hubby." "Oh God, I'll be so relieved when we can all 3 be together at once. Just being with 1 or 2 of you at a time has been tough after what you've done to me. There's no way Dave alone can satisfy me anymore. Do you think we've covered everything? I adore him, and he's a wonderful provider and father. I don't want to lose him." "Yeah, I think we can keep him in check." "Yeah, I just hope Dave doesn't start confiding in our wives and causing trouble. We've been doing fine the last 3 years. I think we should have been content with how things were instead of getting greedy like this. Having you to ourselves all night or on a long trip sounds nice, but I'm not sure we can push Dave this hard. We might have unleashed something uncontrollable." "Well, the bugs we planted and the few things we found that make him look bad should make him back off. I just wish he wasn't so straight and honorable. It's unbelievable we haven't found anything shady he's done. How can a man in business for himself not take advantage of situations to make extra cash? Oh, by the way, Becky, are you still keeping an eye on the finances and transactions like we discussed? Yeah, I convinced the bank to limit his cash withdrawals, but I can't control his check writing. At least we can track them if he does. I wish I had a way to monitor the business more closely. Now I regret pushing him to hire office help so I could stay home with the kids and be a housewife." Becky chuckled, then added, "Of course, if I hadn't insisted on staying home, we wouldn't be having as much fun, would we? I was so frustrated only being with you all a couple nights a month or on trips. Being a stay-at-home mom allowed us to play more. And now, with this plan, we can play whenever we want." Dave was gloomy and preoccupied by the river. His friends attempted to chat with him and lift his spirits, but they weren't making much headway. They got him drunk on Tuesday evening. After he passed out from intoxication, Don and Roger retreated to the porch to converse quietly. Roger expressed concern, saying, "I'm starting to fret, Don. We've been talking to him for 4 days, and if anything, he's becoming more determined to leave Becky and seek revenge on her lover. He's on the brink of exploding and going wild. How are we going to manage this situation now? It all seemed so promising and simple when we devised the plan to control him and spend more time with her. What if he finds out and tells our wives?" Don reassured him, saying, "Relax, Roger. I can manipulate him in the divorce proceedings and paint her as an angel. Even if she does divorce him, so what? We only embarked on this because she said she wanted to keep him around. I'll admit, banging her while she's married to him gives me a thrill, but she'd still be just as enjoyable if she weren't married. We just need to prevent him and our wives from discovering the truth so we don't get screwed over. We might need to resort to some physical persuasion, but let's wait and see how things unfold in a week or two." Dave couldn't hear the conversation clearly, but he had awakened and caught snippets of their discussion on the front porch. He understood they were upset that he was stubborn about accepting Becky's infidelity, and they believed they needed to convince him to be more tolerant. Now, not only was he angry with her, but he was also angry with them. Before drifting back to sleep, he resolved to handle the situation without their assistance. Over the next few days, Dave grew more distant from his friends. Roger and Kenny grew genuinely concerned when all he would say about the situation was, "I'm going to find out who the woman is sleeping with, and both she and they are going to pay big time." Finally, the day arrived for them to head home. Once again, Roger rode with Dave, but there was no conversation in the truck. Kenny drove his own car, and as soon as they reached an area with good cell service, he called Don. Don and Becky sat in Dave's living room and listened as Kenny reported on Dave. "He's boiling with anger. If anything, he's even more determined to make you pay than he was when I got to the cabin. I'm not sure what to do, but I think we should lay low until he calms down. If he catches us, it could get ugly." Becky sat in shock, tears streaming down her cheeks, and she was almost hyperventilating. Don, with clenched jaws and a red face, sat beside her. After a brief conversation with Kenny, Don turned to Becky. He pulled her close and began caressing her breasts to calm her down. As he touched her, he said, "Becky, don't worry. I didn't want to resort to drastic measures if we didn't have to, but it seems like we have no choice now. See how he behaves this weekend and let me know on Sunday evening. If it seems like he's going to cause trouble, we'll file on Monday. I can freeze all your personal accounts, and I believe I can freeze the business accounts pending court approval for all expenditures. We can convince the judge that he might drain your accounts and ruin the business if we don't take control." Dave came home late on Friday night and found Becky in the living room, looking upset as though she had been crying. She seemed disheveled and was only wearing one of his shirts. As Dave walked by, he noticed something odd about her appearance that made him very upset. Becky looked at him defiantly and seemed to be provoking him with her posture. Dave was really angry and just walked by Becky without saying anything. Becky tried to follow him into their bedroom and even attempted to join him in the shower, but Dave firmly told her to leave, expressing his disappointment and anger about the situation. He told her that he had hoped they could resolve their issues, but now he felt there was no chance for that. Dave warned Becky that even though she had hurt him, he would find a way to respond to her actions and those of the person or people she was involved with. After getting himself together, Dave quickly packed his things into his truck, going back and forth from the house. While packing, he overheard Becky on the phone. One of the last things he tried to do before leaving was to transfer money from their joint bank accounts. But he discovered he was locked out because the password had been changed. This made him even more angry. Turning around, he saw Becky watching him, which only added to his frustration. Becky appeared remorseful as she spoke. "I hoped you'd come to your senses and we wouldn't reach this point. You realize you're making a grave mistake, right? I love you more than any man I've ever known. I don't want to lose you. If you persist, you'll risk losing the business and everything we've built. Just so you're aware, I've hired Don as my lawyer. I just spoke with him and informed him of your behavior. He'll be in touch." Dave was stunned. He knew Don was also her friend, but geez, he'd been Dave's attorney since he started practicing law. He couldn't believe Don would betray him like this. Dave left his home and drove straight to his office and warehouse complex. He planned to stay in his office and conference room for a while. On the way in, he stopped at the gate and spoke to the guard. "I'm having some trouble with my wife. She and her lover have threatened me. I need you to call in extra security and keep all unauthorized persons off the property." Saturday morning around 10 a.m., Dave was leaving the complex to grab breakfast when he got halted at the gate. A man approached him, confirmed his identity, then handed him an envelope saying, "You've been served." After the man left, Dave opened the envelope and found a restraining order. It stated that he couldn't come within 300 feet of his wife, children, or their home. Additionally, there was an order requiring court approval for any expenditures from his personal or business accounts, preventing him from depleting the company's assets before divorce proceedings, which were set to start the following Monday. After breakfast, Dave went to his assistant's house. When she opened the door, she remarked, "Dave, you look awful. What's wrong?" "I need to talk. I need help, and you're the only person I can trust. I'm sorry to bother you on the weekend, but I'm in trouble and I have no idea who I can trust or talk to. She stepped back and gestured for Dave to come in. "Come on in, Dave. Would you like some coffee?" Dave followed her into the kitchen, where he saw her husband, Thaddeus, sitting at the table. It seemed he had interrupted their brunch, as there were plates with eggs still on the table. "I'm sorry. I guess I should leave. Thaddeus looked up at Dave and said, "You look terrible, Dave. Sit down and talk to us, for heaven's sake." Dave slowly recounted to the couple everything that had happened in his life since 2 weeks ago Thursday. Then he expressed, "I'm at a loss for what to do now or how to help myself. My supposed best friends spent the last 2 weeks urging me to let Becky continue her affair on the side. They argue that since she's been doing it for years and I never noticed, why should I disrupt things? And now, Don, my former best friend, is collaborating with Becky as her attorney, entangling me in legal complications. I can't even spend money without court approval, and I can't get that until at least Monday. My best friend has taken Becky's case, so I'm cut off there. I'm not even sure I have enough money to eat. All my credit cards were declined when I tried to pay for breakfast." Gertrude leaned back and said, "Dave, I can't believe Becky would do this to you." She turned to her husband and asked, "Thad, can't we offer him some financial assistance?" Her husband nodded in agreement. Dave sat at the table feeling angry, helpless, and determined to seek retribution like never before. Thad pondered for a moment before stating, "If what you say is true, you need some serious help. I just hope there isn't a bug hidden in your clothes somewhere." His eyes narrowed, and he added, "Come with me, Dave." They headed downstairs into the walkout basement. Stopping at the bottom of the stairs, Thad instructed, "Dave, undress right now and give me your clothes. There's a shower over there, and I'll bring you some of my clothes to wear. I'll take yours to the front door. After you've cleaned up, we'll talk. I doubt there's a bug in our house, but they might have followed you here and planted a listening device outside." Dave changed into some old sweatpants belonging to Thad, and then all three of them retreated into a cement storm shelter beneath the stairway. He felt foolish as he began to speak, but Thad and Gertrude stopped him. They spent the next hour communicating through written notes, planning out their course of action. After covering all possible scenarios, Thad left to contact individuals whom he believed could assist Dave. They agreed that Dave would have minimal interaction with these people, and Thad and Gertrude would lend him the necessary funds to start the investigation. While it was assumed that Becky would halt her activities, they planned to monitor her and Dave's 3 friends for a while. On Sunday, Dave, Thad, and Gertrude decided to catch up over lunch, enjoying each other's company and sharing laughs. At the same time, Becky hosted a meeting at her house with Don, Kenny, and Roger to discuss some pressing matters. After their meeting concluded, they all took a moment to relax and share their thoughts on the situation. Roger, looking concerned, broke the silence. "I'm feeling uneasy about all this," he admitted. "I'm not sure if it was a good idea to meet today. What if Dave finds out we were here? Maybe we should keep a low profile until we figure things out. We had a stable situation for over 3 years, and pushing the boundaries now seems risky. I'm worried this might not end well for us." He continued to share his anxieties about recent events, expressing doubt over their strategy and concern over Dave's recent activities, particularly his time spent with his secretary and her husband. Roger mentioned that their surveillance hadn't picked up anything suspicious, but he was still nervous about the potential repercussions of their actions and decisions. "Stop complaining. We've got Dave completely under control. He's unable to access any money, and we're keeping such close tabs on him that we'll know his every move before he even makes it. Right now, he's with his personal assistant and her husband, feeling sorry for himself. If he tries to leave, we'll be alerted before he's even out of sight. He can't even make a call without us knowing what he's saying, whether it's from his phone or hers." On Monday morning, Dave started searching for a new attorney to represent him. He spoke with several and scheduled appointments with two. It was a challenge for him because Don had been his legal counsel for years, but now that Don was representing Becky, he had to find someone else. Eventually, he decided to hire Sally Hawk, who impressed him during the interview and came highly recommended. Their first course of action was to initiate legal proceedings to release Dave's business accounts and secure enough funds for his living expenses. They also opted to hire another private investigator firm to monitor Becky. Dave authorized wiretaps on his house and video surveillance. Furthermore, he gave Sally the green light to start divorce proceedings based on adultery. Later that evening, Thad handed Dave the footage captured the previous day. Naturally, Dave was devastated. Discovering that Becky was involved with all three of his friends only fueled his anger further. However, he now knew who he was up against. The following morning, he went to his office and made 5 copies of the CD. He distributed one to each of his friends' wives, one to his attorney, kept one for himself, and placed the original in a safe deposit box. Additionally, he uploaded the video to various amateur XXX sites on the internet, using the participants' real names. He set up the site as pay-per-view, with the funds directed from a PayPal account to a bank in the Cayman Islands. He smirked, realizing Don had given him a key to his office, allowing Dave to set up the site from there, implicating Don if the tracing led back. Dave also sent still images of Becky's actions to several of her friends and family members via email. He executed all of this, using the free computers at the college library to avoid suspicion. Although he briefly considered using Don's office, he dismissed the idea, knowing it would appear suspicious as Don wouldn't engage in such activities. Using the college computers was straightforward for Dave. He had done so multiple times before without getting caught. Despite the requirement of a student ID card and password for logging in, Dave often found machines left logged on, allowing him to use someone else's credentials. Moreover, the lack of CCTV security cameras at the local college meant he didn't need to worry about being captured on video in the vicinity. On Wednesday, Dave had a blast fielding phone calls from people who had watched the video. In the early afternoon, Becky called him in tears. She asked, "How could you do that? I thought you loved me. I told you it was just Zex because you couldn't give me what I needed. How could you ruin my life like that?" Dave chuckled and replied, "Rebecca, I didn't ruin your life. You did. I'm just delivering the payback I promised if you went through with your plans. Frankly, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure you've been cheating on me for a while. There were plenty of times when one of the guys would make sure I was out and I'd come home late. A lot of things that didn't add up then make sense now. By the time I'm done with you and those jerks, you'll regret ever doing this." Later that afternoon, Becky's sister called. She said, "You poor fool. Looks like you finally figured out about your oh-so-perfect wife. I assume you're the one who sent this video. Well, now it seems she and I can share the boys. I didn't know she was with them until I got this." Dave shuddered as she hung up, her maniacal laughter echoing in his mind all night. Don also called, and as soon as Dave answered, he started yelling. Dave played along upon realizing it was Don. He kept Don on the line for almost 15 minutes. Don made threats of both physical and legal harm, saying, "You jerk. By the time I'm through with you, you'll wish you never crossed me. I'll have your wife whenever I want, and we'll have most of your money too. If you had just done what I told her, you'd still have a family, money, and a life. After I'm done with you, I'll have the guys rough you up. I've been with that girl since high school, and I'll continue to be long after you're gone, you jerk. Enjoy living in the dumps because that's where you'll be when I'm through. I'll file every lawsuit I can find and bleed you dry just to defend against them." Later calls from Becky's parents were distressing. Her mother was in tears as she asked, "Dave, how could you do this to Becky? I understand she hurt you deeply, but spreading pictures of her everywhere was too vengeful. Couldn't you have resolved this in a more civilized way?" By the time Dave decided to head home for the evening, he felt content with his actions so far. He was confident that the computerized answering system his company had installed would prove its worth, especially from the recordings it made that day alone. Initially, he had concerns about how his then-attorney and friend Don advised him to set up the system with the telecom provider. When a call came in, the computer would answer and give a warning before recording began. The warning stated, "Thank you for calling Central U.S. Inventory, Logistics, and Security Company. All phone calls are recorded for later use. If you do not want your call recorded, please hang up now. If you wish to speak to someone, please press 0 to be connected to an operator." It seemed Don either didn't consider the warning or was too furious to heed it, because all his threats and boasting were captured after the warning he insisted on including in the system. Dave saw this as poetic justice. Unfortunately, all the individuals involved in Becky's circle stopped associating with her once the legal cases were initiated. Fortunately, Thad's acquaintance managed to capture video and audio recordings on the first Saturday, as none of the private investigators recorded any incriminating evidence. While some suspicious phone calls were obtained, they were mostly ambiguous and of little use. One of Sally's initial actions was to report Don to the State Bar Association. His law license was promptly suspended, and he was permanently disbarred due to his unethical conduct and threats, even before the divorce and legal proceedings concluded. Dave's divorce was finalized, with Becky receiving a small portion, around 25%, of the marital assets. Dave retained ownership of his company. Furthermore, Dave was granted custody of the children, primarily due to a subtle detail initially overlooked. During the photo session, when Thad's acquaintance captured images of Becky and the others, they inadvertently photographed another individual. This picture not only captured the scene of the event, but also showed a child peeking into the house from the backyard through the patio door. When the judge saw this evidence, full custody of the children was awarded to Dave. Dave's legal actions against Don proved highly successful. He was awarded $1.3 million in damages for breaching attorney-client privilege and for Don's misconduct in representing Becky while still acting as Dave's attorney. Don faced censure for his inappropriate relationship with Becky and various ethical violations, leading to fines payable to the state. As Dave pursued legal recourse against Don, Don's financial situation deteriorated significantly, nearing bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Shelley, Don's wife, depleted most of their remaining marital assets during their divorce. Similarly, Pam, Kenny's wife, received a significant portion of his assets after their divorce. Surprisingly, Roger and Trixie remained married, as it was revealed that Trixie had willingly engaged in the group's activities. However, Roger grew discontented with his friend's continued exploitation of Trixie. When Don and Kenny moved in with Roger after being ousted from their homes, tensions escalated. Kenny's frustration boiled over one evening, leading to a violent altercation where he assaulted Don and Roger. Kenny was hospitalized due to injuries sustained in the fight, and Don and Kenny were subsequently convicted and sentenced to a year in jail. Consequently, Roger and Trixie ended their marriage. Reflecting on these events nearly a year later, Dave and Gertrude discussed a news article detailing the conflict involving Don, Kenny, and Roger over Trixie. Gertrude then inquired whether Dave maintained any contact with Rebecca, noting her supervised visits with their children. Dave glanced at her and replied firmly, "No, we only communicate when necessary, usually about the kids. I have no interest in speaking with her, and if I could avoid it entirely, I would." "I was just curious. You two seemed perfect for years, and then..." "Well, I've always wondered if you knew why she did what she did. I just can't comprehend why a woman who loves her husband would act that way." Dave gazed at Gertrude, feeling a knot form in his stomach. He clenched his jaw and bit his lip before reaching into his desk drawer. Retrieving a folder, he handed it to Gertrude. "I don't know why I held on to this letter. I'm not even sure why I agreed to read it. Remember when Becky's mother visited the office in tears about 7 months ago? She gave me this letter and insisted I read it before she left, so I did." Gertrude opened the folder and read the following. "Dear David, you may question why I still call you dearest, but despite everything, you're the man I love. I've made mistakes that hurt you, and for that, I'm deeply sorry. My actions weren't intentional, but I need to come clean about them. Our past relationships with our high school friends were complicated, but they didn't affect us until I made a mistake on our 9th anniversary. You were busy with work, and I ended up drinking too much at a Valentine's Day party. Feeling lonely, things took a turn when Don and Kenny drove me home. Reminiscing about past encounters led to a moment of weakness where I gave in to temptation with them. That night, I experienced feelings and pleasures that were intense and new. This led to more encounters with them, sometimes individually or together, whenever you were away. These moments were filled with excitement and fear of getting caught, which somehow added to the thrill. Don later suggested an arrangement to avoid the risk of getting caught, believing you might accept it to keep our family intact. I convinced myself you might agree, hoping to avoid losing you and our children. But I realize now how much pain and betrayal my actions have caused you. I'm truly sorry for the hurt I've caused. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Yours always, Becky." Gertrude glanced up after reading the letter. Her eyes were teary, but she held back her anger. "Dave, I truly believe she still loves you more than anyone else. I know she's hurting. But Dave, she was nearly as much a victim as you were. I think your friend Don was a predator. You know, over the years, we've both heard some terrible rumors about him. I wouldn't be surprised if he intentionally got her drunk that first night. No man of high moral character, no true friend would take advantage of her like she said he did. Yeah, I know, Gertie, but, well, I'm not entirely sure she gave me the whole truth there. She always seemed to pay more attention to Don than I would have liked. I brushed it off, but there were several times we argued after a party because I thought she was too friendly, letting him take too many liberties. But I never caught them in anything substantial to confront them about. I have to admit, after Don's phone call when I finally caught them, thanks to you and Thad, I had enough doubts to get DNA tests done on the children. You can't imagine how relieved I was when the test confirmed I was their father. Well, anyway, I believe she thinks she loves me, but I don't think it's genuine love. It's more like infatuation, maybe a deep affection. I was easy to live with, a good provider and father. I now realize I was probably her last choice, and we married because, well, I'm not sure why she married me. I loved her deeply, but I don't think she felt that same depth of love for me. I believe that's why she cheated and continued to do so. She was selfish and only cared about her own pleasure, needs, and desires.
Story 4.
Mark stared at his wedding photo, the silver frame catching the late afternoon light streaming through his home office window. In the image, he and Emily beamed at each other, young and in love, their whole lives ahead of them. 8 years had passed since that day, but it felt like a lifetime ago that he set the frame face down on his desk, a gesture that had become habit over the past few months. The happy couple in that photo no longer existed. In their place were two strangers sharing a house. Their conversations reduced to mundane discussions about bills and schedules. The sound of the garage door opening pulled him from his thoughts. Emily was home early for once. Mark checked his watch 6:30 p.m. She usually didn't return until well after 8 these days. He listened to her heels clicking against the hardwood floors, tracking her movement through the house. Emily, he called out. The footsteps paused. Yes, I was thinking we could order from that new Thai place tonight. Have dinner together? A lengthy silence followed. I already ate at the office. The Morgan account is keeping us busy. Of course it was. The Morgan account had become her universal excuse. Mark pushed back from his desk, walking to the kitchen where Emily stood checking the mail. Her designer blazer was still crisp despite the long day, not a hair out of place in her carefully styled bob. The Morgan account, he repeated. Funny how one client can consume so much time. Emily's shoulders tensed slightly. It's a major deal, Mark. You know how important this is for the firm. More important than your marriage. She slammed the mail down on the counter. Don't start. I'm not in the mood for another lecture about how I'm never home. When was the last time we had dinner together? Or watched a movie? Or did anything as a couple? I don't keep track. Emily brushed past him, heading for the stairs. And I don't appreciate being ambushed the moment I walk in the door. Mark followed her. It's ambushing now? To want to spend time with my wife? This is exactly why I work late. She spun to face him halfway up the stairs. Every time I'm home, you're suffocating me with demands for attention. I need space, Mark. I need time to focus on my career. Your career. He laughed bitterly. Is that what you call those late-night strategy sessions? Emily's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just wondering why strategy requires so many dinner meetings, and weekend conferences, and late-night calls in the bathroom when you think I'm asleep. Are you spying on me? I'm observing my wife pulling away from me. There's a difference. Emily descended a few steps until they were eye level. Listen carefully, because I'm only going to say this once. My work is important to me. If you can't handle having a successful wife who doesn't run every decision by you, that's your problem, not mine. This isn't about success, Mark said quietly. This is about respect, honesty. Remember those wedding vows we took? The ones about honoring each other? Oh, for God's sake. Emily threw up her hands. I'm going to take a shower. When I come out, I expect this interrogation to be over. She stormed up the stairs, leaving Mark standing there, his hands clenched in fists at his sides. The shower started running moments later, and with it came a familiar sound, the soft ding of Emily's phone receiving a message. Mark looked up the stairs, listening to the water run. The phone would be in her blazer pocket, probably tossed on the bathroom counter. It had been weeks since he'd last checked it, promising himself he wouldn't become the paranoid, suspicious husband. But as he climbed the stairs, his footsteps silent against the carpet, he knew that paranoia had nothing to do with it. The signs were all there: the late nights, the defensive behavior, the constant phone checks. He wasn't imagining the distance growing between them. He wasn't inventing the way she recoiled from his touch, or how she always seemed to be texting someone when she thought he wasn't looking. The bathroom door was closed, steam seeping out beneath it. Emily's blazer lay draped over the hallway chair, her phone visible in the pocket. Mark's heart pounded as he reached for it. This was the moment he could either remain in denial, or he could face whatever truth lay behind that locked screen. The phone felt heavy in his hand as he returned to their bedroom. Emily had never changed the password from their anniversary date. For digits that once represented their love, now about to reveal its destruction, his fingers trembled as he typed in the numbers. 1-0-2-2 at the screen unlocked, revealing a message preview that made his blood run cold. Miss you already. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to taste you again. Mark sank onto the bed, his world tilting on its axis. In that moment, as the shower continued to run and his wife hummed tunelessly behind the bathroom door, he began to understand that everything he thought he knew about his marriage had been a lie, and this was just the beginning. For the next week, Mark lived in a state of controlled fury. Each morning, he kissed Emily goodbye as if nothing had changed. Each evening, he watched her leave for her late meetings, knowing exactly where she was going and with whom. The messages on her phone had told him everything. Jacob, a client from her firm, or so she claimed in their texts. Their affair had been going on for 6 months, their rendezvous carefully planned around Mark's schedule. They met at high-end hotels, restaurants where Mark would never think to look, and sometimes the thought made his stomach turn. In Jacob's downtown apartment, Mark sat in his home office, scrolling through the screenshots he'd taken of their conversations. He'd created a detailed timeline of their affair, each date and location meticulously documented. The evidence was damning, but it wasn't just the physical betrayal that cut him to the core. It was the way they talked about him. Poor Mark, Emily had written. He actually suggested couples therapy today, as if talking about our feelings would make me want him again. Jacob's response had been cruel. Some men just don't get it. They think being nice and reliable is enough. But you need more than that. Don't you, baby? So much more, Emily had replied. Things I could never do with him. He's too vanilla. Too safe. Mark's computer screen cracked under his grip. He forced himself to relax his fingers, taking deep breaths. He wouldn't let anger cloud his judgment. Not now. Not when he needed to think clearly. The front door opened downstairs. Emily's voice drifted up, speaking softly into her phone. Mark opened a new browser tab, hiding the evidence of his discovery. I'll call you back, she said as she passed his office. Yes, tomorrow same time? I know. I miss you too. Mark's jaw clenched. He wondered if Jacob knew that Emily used the same lines on him that she'd once used with Mark. If he realized he wasn't special, just the newest player in her game. Hey, Emily appeared in his doorway, wearing a new dress he hadn't seen before. I'm going to that conference this weekend, remember? The one downtown. Mark nodded, maintaining his facade of ignorance. Right? The marketing summit. I'll be gone Friday through Sunday. Try not to miss me too much. She attempted a playful smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Which hotel is it at again? The Marriott. The lie came easily to her lips. They're hosting all the keynote speakers there. Mark pulled up the Marriott's website. Funny, I don't see any marketing events listed for this weekend. Emily's smile faltered. It's a private conference. Industry professionals only. Of course. Mark turned back to his computer. Have fun with Jacob. The silence that followed was deafening. Mark could hear Emily's sharp intake of breath, could practically feel her mind racing for a denial. What did you say? Her voice was dangerously quiet. Mark swiveled his chair to face her. Jacob, your client. The one you've been fucking for the past 6 months. Have fun with him this weekend. All color drained from Emily's face. You've been spying on me? Spying. Mark laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet room. I didn't need to spy, Emily. You got sloppy. Left your phone unlocked. Left your email logged in. Left breadcrumbs any idiot could follow. You had no right, no right? Mark stood so quickly his chair slammed into the wall. I'm your husband. I had every right to know you were making a fool of me. Emily stepped back, but her chin lifted defiantly. Fine. Yes, I'm seeing Jacob. Are you happy now? Is that what you wanted to hear? What I want to hear is why. Why him? Why throw away 8 years of marriage? Because he makes me feel alive. Emily's voice rose, filling the office. Because when I'm with him, I'm not just someone's wife. I'm not trapped in this suburban prison. Playing house with a man who thinks date night at Olive Garden is exciting. Mark absorbed each word like a physical blow, but he refused to show weakness. So I'm boring? Too safe? Not enough of a man for you. You want the truth? No, you're not. Emily's words dripped with contempt. Jacob gives me things you never could. Makes me feel things you never did. Like what? Anal sex. Mark watched her flinch at his crude words. Oh yes, I read all about that. How you begged him for it. Funny, considering how many times you told me it was disgusting when I suggested it. Emily's face flushed red. You're just proving my point. Look at you, acting like a wounded little boy because your wife found someone better. Better? Mark's voice was ice. A man who sleeps with married women is better. At least he's not weak. Emily spat. At least he takes what he wants instead of begging for scraps of attention. Mark moved closer, watching her retreat until her back hit the doorframe. You think I'm weak, Emily? You think I'm just going to roll over and accept this? What are you going to do? She sneered, but there was uncertainty in her eyes. Cry? Beg me to go to counseling? Face it, Mark. You're not enough for me anymore. You never were. The last thread of hope, of possible reconciliation, snapped inside Mark's chest. He stepped back, his expression hardening into something Emily had never seen before. Get out. Emily blinked. What? Get your things and get out of my bedroom. Sleep in the guest room, the couch, your car, I don't care. But you don't get to fuck another man and sleep in my bed. This is my house too, not for long. Mark's voice was deadly calm. You want Jacob so badly? Go to him. But don't expect anything from me anymore. No support, no help, no friendship. As far as I'm concerned, you're already dead to me. Emily stared at him, seemingly thrown by this new, cold version of her husband. Finally, she straightened her spine. Fine, I'll sleep in the guest room. But don't think this little display of backbone changes anything. You'll get over this, Mark. You always do. Because that's what weak men do, they forgive and forget. She turned on her heel, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. Mark waited until he heard the guest room door close before returning to his computer, opening a new email account under a false name. He began forwarding himself every message, every photo, every piece of evidence he'd gathered. Emily thought she knew him, thought she could predict his reactions. She had no idea what was coming. The next morning dawned gray and cold, matching Mark's mood as he methodically stripped their bedroom. Every trace of Emily, her clothes, her jewelry, her precious collection of scented lotions he boxed and moved to the guest room while she was at work. Her protests upon returning home fell on deaf ears. This is childish, she snapped, watching him remove her photos from the walls. You're acting like a teenager. Mark continued his task without acknowledging her. Each item he removed felt like excising a tumor, cutting away the diseased parts of his life. Emily eventually stormed off, the guest room door slamming behind her late that night. As Emily slept, Mark began laying the groundwork for his response to her betrayal. His laptop screen cast a blue glow across his face as he worked, creating new email accounts, documenting timestamps, saving screenshots. Every message between Emily and Jacob was carefully cataloged and backed up to secure cloud storage. The evidence painted a devastating picture. Not only had Emily been physically unfaithful, but she'd shared intimate details of their marriage with Jacob. Their private struggles, Mark's insecurities, even their financial situations all had become fodder for their cruel amusement. He actually cried during couples counseling, Emily had written in one message. Can you believe it? Talking about how he misses our emotional connection. God, it was pathetic. Jacob's response had been equally cutting. Sounds like someone needs his balls back. Good thing you found a real man. Mark's fingers tightened on his mouse, but he forced himself to continue reading. Each message strengthened his resolve, hardening his heart against any remaining sympathy for his wife. The next day, while Emily was at her conference with Jacob, Mark visited his bank. The teller's eyebrows rose as he transferred half of their joint savings into a private account, but she completed the transaction without comment. "Will there be anything else, Mr. Harrison?" "Yes." Mark pulled out his phone, showing her the text messages he discovered. "I'd like to document that this transfer was made after discovering my wife's infidelity. For the divorce proceedings." The teller's professional smile softened with understanding. She carefully noted the date and time of the transfer, adding her own signature as witness to his statement back home. Mark contacted a divorce lawyer, one specifically recommended for handling cases involving infidelity. The lawyer's response was swift and professional. "Document everything. Every message, every receipt, every unexplained absence. The more evidence we have, the stronger our position." Mark smiled grimly. Evidence was something he had in abundance. When Emily returned Sunday evening, she found Mark watching television in the living room, apparently absorbed in a basketball game. "If you're ready to discuss this rationally," she began, her tone dripping with condescension. "Nothing to discuss." Mark didn't look away from the screen. "You've made your feelings quite clear." Emily shifted uncomfortably, thrown by his indifference. "So that's it? You're just going to ignore me?" "No, Emily." He finally turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "I'm going to do much worse than that. I'm going to show you exactly how weak I am." She scoffed, but uncertainty flickered in her eyes. "Is that supposed to be threatening?" "Not at all." Mark smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. "Just a promise." Emily opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. Something in his tone made her uneasy. Without another word, she retreated to the guest room. Mark returned his attention to the television, but his mind was already racing with plans. Emily had destroyed their marriage, thinking him too weak to retaliate. She'd burned down 8 years of trust and commitment for a few thrills with Jacob. Now he would burn down her entire world. Starting with the carefully constructed lies she'd built around her affair, that as midnight approached, Mark began phase 1 of his plan. He created a detailed spreadsheet of Emily's schedule over the past 6 months, cross-referencing her work commitments with the hotel receipts he'd found in her email. The pattern was obvious. Every conference and late meeting corresponded with a hotel booking or a dinner reservation for 2. He also discovered something that made his blood boil. Emily had been using their joint credit card for some of these rendezvous. Dinner dates at expensive restaurants, weekend getaways at luxury hotels, all charged to the account they shared. She'd been funding her affair with their money. Mark documented every charge, every receipt. Each piece of evidence was another nail in the coffin of their marriage. But it wasn't enough to simply leave her. No, Emily had done more than betray their vows. She'd humiliated him, mocked him, treated his love and loyalty as weaknesses to be exploited. His laptop pinged with a new email notification. The divorce lawyer had sent over preliminary paperwork, along with a strategy for handling the division of assets. Mark read through it carefully, noting how his documented evidence of Emily's infidelity would strengthen his position. The house creaked and settled around him as he worked through the night. From the guest room came the occasional sound of Emily's phone, chiming, no doubt more messages from Jacob. Let them plot and plan, Mark thought. Let them think they'd won. They had no idea what was coming to by dawn. Mark had compiled a devastating dossier of Emily's betrayal. Every message, every photo, every receipt, all organized and backed up in multiple locations. But this was just the beginning. Emily thought she knew him, thought she could predict his reactions based on 8 years of marriage. She was about to learn how wrong she was. As the first rays of sunlight crept through his office window, Mark finally closed his laptop. The man who had begged for his wife's attention, who had suggested couples therapy and date nights, who had tried desperately to save his marriage, that man was gone. In his place was someone Emily wouldn't recognize. Someone who would show her exactly how much damage a weak man could do when pushed too far. Mark stood, stretching his stiff muscles, and walked to the window. The neighborhood was coming alive with early morning activity: joggers, dog walkers, people leaving for work, all going about their normal routines, unaware that behind the perfectly maintained facade of the Harrison home A war was about to begin. Emily had traded 8 years of marriage for 6 months of thrills. Now she would learn the true cost of that decision, and by the time Mark was finished, she would understand exactly how badly she had underestimated her husband. Mark sat in his parked car outside Jacob's downtown apartment building, his hands steady on the steering wheel as he watched people enter and exit through the glass doors. 3 weeks of methodical research had led him to this moment. Jacob lived in Unit 1103. Information Mark had gleaned from Emily's text messages detailing her visits. His phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Working late again." "Don't wait up." Mark's lip curled as he typed a response. "No problem. Take care." The casual exchange was part of his carefully crafted facade. For the past weeks, he played the role of the defeated husband perfectly, acting as though he'd accepted Emily's affair. He'd even started leaving the house during her late nights, pretending to visit friends or go to the gym. In reality, he was building a comprehensive profile of both Emily and Jacob's routines that a familiar figure emerged from the building. Jacob himself, dressed in an expensive suit that screamed new money. Mark's fingers tightened on the wheel as he watched the man who destroyed his marriage stroll to his BMW, probably heading to meet Emily. "Enjoy it while it lasts," Mark muttered, pulling out his notebook. He added another entry to his growing list of observations. 6:45 p.m. Leaves apartment. Gray suit. BMW heading east. Dinner with Emily. The notebook contained weeks of similar entries. Jacob's schedule was surprisingly predictable. Gym every morning at 5:30 a.m. Office by 8 o'clock. Lunch at the same 3 restaurants. Drinks with colleagues on Thursdays. The man was a creature of habit, a weakness Mark intended to exploit. His phone rang, displaying Emily's number. Mark answered, keeping his voice neutral. "Hey," Emily said, sounding slightly breathless. "I forgot to mention I have that marketing conference next weekend. The one in Chicago." Mark allowed himself a small smile. Another lie. He'd already found the hotel reservation Jacob had made for them right here in the city. "Sure," he replied. "How long will you be gone?" "Just Friday through Sunday. The firm's covering everything." "I'm sure they are." Mark watched as Jacob's BMW turned onto the main street. "Have a good time?" "That's it." Emily's voice held a note of suspicion. "No questions? No accusations? Would it change anything if I did?" A pause. "No, I suppose not." "Then why waste the energy?" Mark kept his tone deliberately flat. "You're going to do what you want anyway." "Mark." Emily hesitated. "I know this is hard, but I appreciate how you're handling it. Being mature about everything." The sheer audacity of her statement made his blood boil, but his voice remained steady. "Goodbye, Emily." He ended the call and started his car, following Jacob's BMW at a safe distance. The evening traffic provided perfect cover as he tracked his quarry through the city streets. That Jacob's car finally pulled into the parking lot of La Maison, an upscale French restaurant. Minutes later, Emily's Audi joined it. Mark parked across the street, watching as the lovers met at the entrance. Exchanging a kiss that made his stomach turn, taking out his camera, Mark captured several clear shots of their greeting. More evidence for his growing collection. But simple documentation wasn't enough anymore. He needed to understand his targets completely, their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities, their pressure points. His phone buzzed with an email notification. His private investigator had come through with detailed background information on Jacob. Mark opened the file, scanning through the contents. Jacob Mitchell, age 36, occupation senior investment manager at Riverside Capital, marital status divorced, 2 years, criminal record, none, financial status high income, significant debt, current address 1103 The Grand, downtown, notable former gambling addiction, multiple casino debts, cleared 3 years ago. Mark's eyes narrowed at the last detail. A recovered gambling addict with a taste for luxury and married women. How interesting. He wondered if Emily knew about Jacob's past or if she cared. In her blind pursuit of excitement, she'd latched onto a man whose carefully polished exterior masked significant flaws. The sound of laughter drew his attention back to the restaurant window. Emily was touching Jacob's arm, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at Mark in years. The sight should have hurt, but Mark felt only cold determination. Let them laugh. Let them think they were untouchable in their little bubble of adultery and deceit, that he had plans for both of them. Mark's phone chimed with another email, this time from his lawyer. The divorce paperwork was ready, but Mark had asked him to hold off filing. He wanted everything in place before he made his move. Emily thought she'd broken him, reduced him to a passive observer of his own humiliation. She would learn differently. Very differently. Opening his notebook again, Mark began sketching out the next phase of his plan. He had Jacob's schedule, his weaknesses, his pressure points. Now it was time to use them. The man's gambling history was particularly intriguing. Recovered addicts often carry deep fears about their past being exposed, especially in professional settings. The darkness fell over the city. Mark watched Emily and Jacob enjoy their expensive dinner, paid for with his money. Soon they would discover the true cost of their affair. But not yet. For now, he would continue watching, learning, planning. After all, revenge, like fine wine, required careful preparation. Mark's office computer pinged with an incoming email from Emily's company server. His anonymous tip about workplace harassment had prompted an internal investigation, exactly as planned. The HR director's response was everything he'd hoped for. Thank you for bringing these concerns to our attention. We take allegations of inappropriate relationships between employees and clients very seriously. Rest assured, this matter will be handled with utmost discretion. A quiet knock on his office door interrupted his reading. Come in. Emily entered, her usual confidence notably diminished. We need to talk. About. Mark continued typing, not bothering to look up. Someone at work. She closed the door behind her. Someone sent photos to HR. Of me and Jacob. Now Mark did look up, his expression carefully neutral. Really? How unfortunate. This isn't funny, Mark. Emily paced the small office. They're launching an investigation. I could lose my job. Sounds serious. Maybe you should have thought about that before fucking a client. Emily's face flushed with anger. Did you do this? Are you the one who sent those photos? Would it matter if I did? God, I knew you were pathetic. But this. She leaned over his desk. Trying to get me fired because I found someone better? Mark stood slowly, meeting her glare. Better? Let's talk about better. Emily. Let's talk about Jacob Mitchell, the gambling addict who's drowning in debt. The man who's been sued twice by former business partners. That's your better option? Emily's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Oh, didn't Loverboy tell you about his past? About the millions he lost at casinos? The loans he's still paying off? Mark pulled out a file and tossed it on the desk. Did he mention he's been sleeping with his secretary too? Or did you think you were special? You're lying. But uncertainty crept into her voice. Jacob would have told me, like you told me about him. Mark's laugh was cold. Face it, Emily. You threw away 8 years of marriage for a man who's just as much a liar as you are. Emily snatched up the file, flipping through the pages. Her hands trembled as she read the private investigator's report, complete with photos of Jacob entering hotels with another woman, not Emily. This is... She swallowed hard. This is fake. You fabricated this to hurt me. Like those fake hotel receipts on our joint credit card? The ones you used to fund your little romance? Mark stepped around the desk. Or maybe the fake texts where you mocked me to your boyfriend. Called me weak? Pathetic? Would you like me to quote them? Emily backed away. Stop it. My personal favorite was the one about couples therapy. How did you put it? He actually cried about our emotional connection. God, it was pathetic. That must have given you and Jacob quite a laugh. I never meant to get caught. Mark moved closer, watching her retreat until her back hit the door. To have your perfect little affair exposed? To face consequences for once in your privileged life? What do you want from me? Emily's voice cracked. An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you. Is that what you need to hear? Mark's expression hardened. What I need is for you to understand something. He planted his hands on either side of her head, trapping her against the door. You thought you knew me. Thought you could predict how I'd react. The weak, passive husband who'd eventually forgive and forget. Emily's breath caught. For the first time, real fear flickered in her eyes. That man is dead, Mark continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. You killed him the moment you decided to betray everything we built together. And the man who replaced him? He's not nearly as forgiving. Are you threatening me? Threatening? Mark stepped back, smiling coldly. No, Emily. I'm promising you, by the time I'm done, you'll understand exactly how badly you underestimated me. He returned to his desk, sitting down as if their conversation had been about nothing more important than the weather. You might want to prepare a good explanation for HR. Those photos are just the beginning. Emily's hand shook as she grabbed the doorknob. You're insane. No. Mark's eyes met hers. I'm just no longer the man you thought you could walk all over. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. She fled the office, leaving the file of Jacob's history scattered across the floor. Mark waited until her footsteps faded before pulling out his phone. Time to move to the next phase that he dialed a number he'd memorized weeks ago. It rang twice before a gruff voice answered. Yeah, Mr. Mitchell? This is Thomas from Riverside Capital's Compliance Department. We need to discuss some concerning transactions we've discovered in your client accounts. On the other end, Jacob's breath hitched. What? What kind of transactions? I think it's better if we discuss this in person. Are you familiar with the Blue Room Bar? Let's meet there tonight at 8. And Mr. Mitchell? I strongly suggest you come alone. Mark ended the call, satisfaction coursing through him. Jacob's gambling history made him the perfect target for this particular fear. The mere suggestion of financial impropriety would have him sweating bullets. Opening his laptop, Mark began preparing for the evening's confrontation. He'd chosen the Blue Room, carefully isolated location, minimal security cameras, private booths where conversations couldn't be overheard. The perfect place for a predator to corner his prey, and Jacob was about to learn just what kind of predator he'd awakened when he decided to pursue a married woman. The Blue Room lived up to its name, casting everything in a dim azure glow that turned shadows into liquid darkness. Mark sat in the furthest booth, watching the door through the bottom of his whiskey glass. He'd arrived an hour early to prepare, choosing his position carefully back to the wall, clear view of both exits, away from the security camera's limited range. At exactly 8, Jacob walked in. The confident swagger Mark had observed outside his apartment was gone, replaced by nervous energy as he scanned the nearly empty bar. Mark allowed himself a small smile. Amazing how quickly the mention of financial irregularities could shake a man's confidence. Mr. Mitchell. Mark raised his hand, pitching his voice slightly lower than usual. Over here, Jacob approached, his expensive suit failing to hide the tension in his shoulders. Are you Thomas? From compliance? Have a seat. Mark gestured to the booth across from him. Can I get you a drink? No, I'd rather discuss these transactions you mentioned. Jacob sat, his fingers drumming against the table. What exactly did you find? Mark took a slow sip of his whiskey. Interesting patterns, similar to ones we've seen before. With your previous gambling issues, the color drained from Jacob's face. How did you know about that? Mark set his glass down carefully. I make it my business to know everything about the men who fuck my wife. Recognition flickered across Jacob's features, followed quickly by fear. You're Mark Harrison, Emily's husband, the one you and she have been laughing about in your texts. Mark's smile never reached his eyes. Though I doubt you'll find this conversation very amusing. Jacob started to stand. I'm leaving. Sit down. Mark's voice carried enough quiet authority that Jacob hesitated. We haven't finished our discussion about your indiscretions. Look, Jacob settled back into his seat, trying to regain his composure. What happened with Emily? It's complicated, but it's between consenting adults. Complicated? Mark leaned forward. Let's simplify it. You pursued a married woman. You helped destroy an 8-year marriage. You mocked and humiliated her husband in private messages. Does that about cover it? If you're looking for an apology? Mark's laugh was sharp enough to make Jacob flinch. From a man who called me, and I quote, a pathetic cuck who needs his balls back? No, I don't want your apology. I want something else entirely. Jacob's hand crept toward his pocket. If you're threatening me, the phone won't help you. Mark pulled out Jacob's iPhone, placing it on the table between them. Amazing how easily people leave their cars unlocked during their morning gym routine. Real fear crept into Jacob's eyes as he patted his empty pocket. What do you want? Want? I want you to understand something. Mark's voice dropped to a near whisper. Every action has consequences. Every choice creates ripples. You chose to pursue my wife, to mock my pain, to revel in my humiliation. Now it's time to face the ripples. Is that supposed to scare me? Jacob tried to sound confident, but his voice wavered. I've dealt with angry husbands before. Have you? And did those husbands know about the $2 million you lost at the Bellagio? Or the loans you're still paying off? How about the insider trading investigation that got quietly buried 3 years ago? Jacob's face went ashen. How did you, or perhaps, Mark continued as if Jacob hadn't spoken, they knew about your current activities? The creative accounting you've been doing with client funds? Amazing what a good private investigator can uncover. You're bluffing. Am I? Mark pulled out a thick folder. Would you like to see the documentation? The bank records? The witness statements? I'm sure the SEC would find it fascinating reading. Jacob's hands shook as he reached for the folder. What do you want from me? First, you're going to end things with Emily. Today. No explanations, no goodbye fuck, no closure. You're just going to disappear from her life. And if I refuse? Mark's smile widened. Then this folder goes to the SEC, your firm's board of directors, and every client whose money you've been playing with. How long do you think you'll last in prison, Jacob? With your pretty face and expensive tastes? You're insane, Jacob whispered. No, I'm just no longer playing by the rules you expected. Mark stood slowly. You have 1 hour to end it with Emily. Then you're going to take a job offer in another city. I hear Seattle has an opening that would suit you. And if you ever contact Emily again, if you ever breathe a word of this conversation to anyone. He let the threat hang in the air. Jacob stared at the folder, his face a mask of defeat. You've thought of everything, haven't you? Almost. Mark's fist connected with Jacob's jaw before the other man could react, sending him sprawling from the booth. That was for calling me pathetic. What followed was a blur of violence, precise and calculated. Mark had chosen this isolated corner of the bar for a reason. By the time the bartender noticed the commotion, it was over. Mark stood over Jacob's crumpled form, breathing heavily. Remember this moment the next time you think about pursuing a married woman. Remember what happened when you chose the wrong husband to mock. He picked up Jacob's phone, placing it next to his head. 1 hour. End it with Emily, or the folder goes public. And Jacob? He knelt down, his voice dropping to a whisper. If you ever breathe a word of what happened here, I'll make sure everyone knows about the things you do with your secretary in the conference room after hours. I have video of that too. Mark straightened his jacket and walked out, leaving Jacob groaning on the floor. In his car, he pulled out his own phone, checking the time. Emily would be waiting for Jacob's usual evening call. Instead, she would receive a brief text ending their affair, followed by silence. Phase 2 of his plan was complete. Now for the final act, opening his laptop. Mark began composing emails to Emily's closest friends and colleagues. Each would receive carefully selected evidence of her infidelity, her cruel messages, her betrayal. By morning, her entire social circle would know exactly what kind of person she really was. Emily had wanted excitement, craved something beyond her boring marriage. Mark smiled grimly as he worked. She was about to get more excitement than she'd ever bargained for. Emily burst into Mark's home office at midnight. Her mascara streaked down her face, phone clutched in her trembling hand. What did you do? Mark looked up from his computer with practiced indifference. You'll have to be more specific. Jacob. Her voice cracked. He ended everything. Just a text saying it's over. And now he won't answer my calls. His number's disconnected. She slammed her hands on his desk. What did you do to him? Me? Mark's eyebrows rose. I've been here all evening working. Maybe he finally developed a conscience. Liar. Emily's shriek echoed off the walls. This is you written all over it. First the photos at work. Now this? Sounds like your perfect romance isn't so perfect after all. Mark turned back to his computer. Though I'm curious, did he mention the secretary he was also sleeping with? Or did that not come up in your intimate conversations? Emily's face went pale. What are you talking about? Oh, you didn't know? Mark pulled up a video file, turning the screen toward her. The security footage clearly showed Jacob and his secretary in an intimate embrace. Guess you weren't as special as you thought. This can't be real. Unlike your fake conferences and late meetings. Mark's voice hardened. Tell me, Emily, how does it feel to be on the receiving end of betrayals? She sank into a chair, her anger crumbling into despair. Why are you doing this? Why? Mark stood slowly. Because you destroyed everything we built together. Because you mocked me, humiliated me, treated my love like a weakness to be exploited. He moved around the desk. Because you needed to learn that actions have consequences. So this is revenge. Emily's laugh was hollow. Destroying my career? Ruining my relationship? No, this is just the beginning. Mark leaned against his desk. You see, while you were busy playing your little games, I was planning, learning, preparing. For what? For the moment when you realize exactly how badly you underestimated me. Mark's smile was cold. Did you check your email tonight? Or your social media? Emily's eyes widened. She grabbed her phone, fingers shaking as she opened her email. Her gasp told in the moment she saw it dozens of messages from friends and colleagues, all responding to the evidence he'd sent them of her affair. You didn't. Every message where you mocked our marriage. Every cruel joke about my attempts to save our relationship. Every detail of your sordid little affair. Mark watched her scroll through her phone in horror. I sent it all. These are private messages. Emily's voice rose with panic. You had no right, like you had no right to share intimate details of our marriage with your lovers? Mark's voice was razor sharp. To laugh about our therapy sessions? To mock my pain for his entertainment? Tears streamed down Emily's face as she read message after message from friends expressing their disgust, their disappointment, their shock at her betrayal. I'll lose everything, she whispered. Now you understand how it feels. Mark returned to his seat. To have your life dismantled piece by piece. To watch everything you built crumble around you. Emily stood on shaking legs. I'll tell everyone what you did. How you stalked us, hacked our phones. Go ahead. Mark's calm never wavered. Tell them how your husband discovered your affair. How he found evidence of your betrayal. How he exposed your lies. He leaned forward. Who do you think they'll sympathize with, Emily? The faithful husband who uncovered his wife's infidelity? Or the cheating wife who destroyed her marriage for a man who was sleeping with his secretary? She staggered back as the full weight of her situation hit her. This isn't you. The Mark I knew would never. The Mark you knew died the moment he read those messages. He turned back to his computer. The man you're dealing with now is someone entirely different. Someone you created with your betrayal. I'll fight you on this. Emily's voice shook despite her attempt at defiance. The divorce, the house, everything. Mark's laughter was cold. With what evidence? What lawyer? What money? He met her eyes. Check our joint account balance. She fumbled with her phone again. The color drained from her face as she saw the transfers he'd made. That's... She swallowed hard. That's our savings. Half of it, yes. My half. Mark's smile was predatory. Legally transferred after documenting your infidelity. Good luck explaining those hotel receipts to a divorce judge. Emily sank back into the chair, all fight leaving her body. What do you want from me? I want you to understand something. Mark stood, walking to where she sat. You thought you knew me, thought you could predict how I'd react to your betrayal. You called me weak, pathetic, safe. He leaned down, his voice dropping to a whisper. But you forgot something crucial. Emily, the most dangerous predators are the ones that wait patiently in the shadows, watching, learning, planning their attack. You're insane, she whispered. No, I'm just no longer the man you thought you could walk all over. He straightened up. Now, I suggest you start looking for a new place to live, and a good lawyer. He returned to his desk. Though I doubt you'll find one willing to take your case once they see the evidence I've compiled. Emily stumbled to her feet and fled the office. Mark listened to her footsteps race up the stairs, followed by the slam of the guest room door. He opened his laptop, checking the timestamp on the scheduled email set to go out tomorrow morning. More evidence, more revelations, more carefully planned destruction of Emily's carefully constructed world. She thought this was the end. She had no idea it was just the beginning. Emily stared at her computer screen, her hands frozen over the keyboard as email after email flooded her inbox. Each notification sound felt like another nail in her coffin. Her colleagues' responses ranged from professional disappointment to personal disgust, all reacting to the evidence Mark had distributed of her affair. Emily, her boss's voice made her jump. My office. Now. The walk down the office corridor felt like a march to the gallows. Every eye followed her progress, whispers trailing in her wake. Inside the office, Mr. Davidson sat behind his desk, his expression grave. Close the door. Emily's hands trembled as she complied. Sir, I can explain. Explain what, exactly? He gestured to his monitor. The inappropriate relationship with a client? The misuse of company resources to conduct your affair? Or perhaps the explicit photos taken in our conference room? Those photos were private. Nothing is private when it involves company liability. Davidson's voice was ice. Do you have any idea the position you've put us in? Jacob Mitchell isn't just any client. His firm represents millions in annual revenue. Emily sank into a chair. I never meant to get caught. Davidson slid a document across his desk. This is your termination notice. We'll pay out your remaining vacation days, but I need your badge and parking pass now. You're firing me? Just like that? Just like that? His laugh was bitter. Emily, half our clients received emails detailing your indiscretions. Photos, text messages, explicit descriptions of acts performed in company facilities. He leaned forward. You're lucky we're not pursuing legal action for breach of contract. This isn't fair. Emily's voice rose with desperation. Mark did this. He's trying to destroy me. Your husband? Davidson's eyebrows rose. The same husband you mocked in messages to Mitchell? The one you betrayed and humiliated? He shook his head. From where I'm sitting, you destroyed yourself. Please. Tears streamed down Emily's face. I'll do anything. Take a pay cut. Transfer departments. Clean out your desk by noon. Davidson's tone brooked no argument. Security will escort you out. Emily stumbled from the office in a daze. At her desk, whispers and stares followed her every move as she packed her personal items into a cardboard box. 8 years of career building. Gone in a morning, her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Rebecca. How could you? Those messages about Mark during therapy. That's beyond cruel. Don't contact me again. Another notification. Her sister's message. Mom's crying. Dad can't even speak, he's so ashamed. Hope the affair was worth destroying our family. Message after message, each one severing another relationship. By the time security arrived to escort her out, Emily's entire social circle had crumbled. That I in her car. She tried calling Jacob again. His number was still disconnected. His office claimed he'd accepted a position in Seattle, effective immediately. No forwarding contact information available. Damn you, Mark, she whispered, gripping her steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. Damn you to hell. Her phone rang, speaking of the devil. She answered with a snarl. Happy now? You've ruined everything. Everything. Mark's voice was calm. No, Emily. This is just the beginning. What more could you possibly do? Check your email. I just sent you something interesting from our joint account. Emily's hands shook as she opened her banking app. The color drained from her face as she saw the transfers, half their savings gone. You can't do this. Actually, I can. And did. All perfectly legal. Documented after discovering your infidelity. She could hear the smile in his voice. Good luck paying for that luxury apartment you've been eyeing. Or a decent lawyer. I'll fight you on this, Emily threatened. I'll tell everyone what you did. What I did. Mark's laugh was cold. You mean discover my wife's affair? Expose her betrayal? Document her cruelty? His voice hardened. Go ahead. Tell everyone. Show them the messages where you mocked me during therapy. Where you brag about sexual acts with Jacob that you denied me. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Why are you doing this? Because you thought you knew me. Thought you could predict how I'd react. The weak, passive husband who'd eventually forgive and forget. A pause. You forgot something crucial. Emily, the most dangerous predators are the ones that wait patiently, planning their revenge. You're sick, she whispered. No, I'm just no longer the man you thought you could walk all over. The sound of typing came through the phone. Oh, and Emily, you might want to start looking for a new gym. I just forwarded those texts about your trainer to the owner. Seems you have quite a pattern of inappropriate relationships. The line went dead before she could respond. Emily sat in her car, watching former colleagues stream past, carefully avoiding her gaze. Her phone continued buzzing with messages, friends unfriending her on social media, family members expressing their disgust, professional contacts severing ties. That an email notification caught her eye. Divorce papers from Mark's lawyer. The documentation was comprehensive, leaving her no room to contest anything. Every betrayal, every cruel message, every misused joint fund, all carefully cataloged and presented. Emily's carefully constructed world was crumbling, and she could do nothing but watch it fall. The apartment felt cold and empty, a far cry from the luxury condo Emily had imagined sharing with Jacob. Instead, she sat on a second-hand couch in a one-bedroom unit on the wrong side of town, all she could afford after Mark's systematic dismantling of her finances. Her phone rang, displaying her mother's number. Emily's hand hovered over it, hope fluttering in her chest. After 3 weeks of silence, maybe how could you? Her mother's voice cracked with emotion. Your father had to leave church this morning. Everyone was talking about those messages you sent. Those things you wrote about Mark. Emily's throat tightened. Mom, please, he loved you, supported you, and you. A sob broke through the line. You mocked him when he cried during therapy? Shared intimate details of your marriage with that man? I made a mistake. Her mother's voice hardened. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did. Another pause. Don't call us again, Emily. Not until you understand what you've done. The line went dead. Emily stared at her phone, another piece of her world crumbling away. Her social media accounts where Ghost Town's friends and family had either blocked her or posted public messages condemning her actions. That a knock at her door made her jump. She opened it to find a courier holding a package. Emily Harrison? Yes. Sign here. The package was small, wrapped in brown paper. No return address. Emily's hands trembled as she opened it, then dropped it with a scream. Inside, perfectly preserved, lay a piece of male anatomy. Underneath it, divorce papers waited for her signature. Her phone rang again. Mark, you. She could barely form words. You monster. Monster? Mark's voice was eerily calm. Interesting choice of words from someone who laughed at her husband's pain, who mocked his attempts to save our marriage. What did you do to Jacob? I simply helped him understand the consequences of his actions. A pause. Don't worry, he'll live. Though his love life might be somewhat diminished. Emily ran to her bathroom, retching into the toilet. When she returned to the phone, Mark was still there. Why? She whispered. Why go this far? Because you needed to learn something? Mark's voice took on a teaching tone. Actions have consequences. Choices create ripples. You chose to betray me, to humiliate me, to treat my love as weakness. Another pause. Now you're experiencing the ripples. I'll go to the police. With what evidence? An anonymous package? And how will you explain the contents of your phone? The messages to Jacob? The photos? Mark's laugh was cold. Face it, Emily. You have nothing. Emily sank to her floor, bones turning to water. What do you want from me? Want? I have everything I want. Your career is in shambles. Your lover is gone. Your friends and family have abandoned you. She could hear him shuffling papers. Oh, and the divorce is final next week. I assume you can't afford to contest it? Tears streamed down Emily's face. I never thought, never imagined. That's your problem, Emily. You never thought, never imagined that your safe, predictable husband could be anything more than what you assumed. His voice hardened. You saw what you wanted to see. The weak man. The pushover. The one you could betray without consequences. Please, she whispered. I'll do anything. There's nothing left to do. Your life, as you knew it, is over. Mark's tone was matter-of-fact. The career you built? Gone. The social circle you cultivated? Destroyed. The man you thought would give you excitement? Disappeared. A final pause. All that's left is for you to understand exactly how badly you underestimated me. Mark, goodbye, Emily. Enjoy your new life. I hear the diner on 5th is hiring waitresses. The line went dead. Emily stared at the package on her floor, her mind racing with implications. Jacob's sudden disappearance. The piece of him left as a warning. The complete destruction of her carefully built life. She'd thought she knew her husband. Thought she could predict his reactions based on 8 years of marriage. Instead, she'd awakened something darker, more calculating than she could have imagined. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. Her bank account was overdrawn. Credit cards maxed out. The meager savings she'd managed to hide gone. Mark had thought of everything. Every escape route, every possible refuge, every potential ally. He'd cut them all off one by one, until she was left with nothing but the consequences of her choices. The divorce papers seemed to mock her from inside the package. Her hands shook as she reached for them, knowing she had no choice but to sign. No money for a lawyer. No evidence that wouldn't further incriminate her. No options left. Emily Harrison, who had once had everything, sat alone in her cheap apartment, surrounded by the ruins of her life. Finally understanding the full cost of underestimating a man's capacity for revenge. Mark stood in his empty house, surveying the bare walls where photos of his life with Emily once hung. The moving company had taken the last of his belongings that morning. All that remained was a laptop on the kitchen counter and a single envelope. His phone buzzed with a message from his lawyer. Divorce finalized. Papers signed. You're officially a free man. A smile crossed his face as he opened his laptop, checking his encrypted email account. Multiple messages confirmed his plans were in place. New identity papers waiting in a safety deposit box. Offshore account secured. Job lined up in another city under his new name. His phone rang. Emily's number. After a moment's consideration, he answered. I signed them. Her voice was hollow, defeated. The divorce papers. You won. Won. Mark leaned against the counter. This wasn't a game, Emily. This was consequences. You destroyed everything. The words came out as a whisper. My career, my friendships, my family, no. Mark's voice hardened. You destroyed those things the moment you chose to betray our marriage. I simply made sure everyone saw who you really are. And Jacob? What you did to him? Consider it a parting gift. Something to remember me by. Mark opened the envelope on the counter, admiring his new driver's license. Though I doubt either of you will forget. A choked sob came through the line. I never thought you could be so cruel. That was your mistake. Mark's voice was eerily calm. You thought you knew me. Thought you could predict my reactions based on who I pretended to be. He paused. You never considered that your safe, predictable husband might be capable of something more. The police will do nothing. Mark cut her off. No evidence. No witnesses. Just the ramblings of a disgraced woman who betrayed her husband. He smiled. Besides, I'll be gone before you hang up this phone. Gone? Fear crept into Emily's voice. What do you mean? Exactly what I said. New name. New city. New life. Mark closed his laptop. The man you married? He no longer exists. You killed him with your betrayal. You can't just disappear. Actually, I can. And will. Mark picked up his keys. The house is yours, by the way. My final gift. Though you might have trouble keeping it on a waitress's salary. Please, Emily's voice cracked. Don't do this. It's already done. Mark walked to the front door. Goodbye, Emily. I hope the excitement you craved was worth the price. He ended the call and blocked her number. Outside, his new car waited in the driveway, sleek, black, untraceable. Everything he owned now existed under his new identity. Carefully constructed over months of planning, his phone buzzed one final time. A message from his private investigator, confirming Jacob had taken the job in Seattle. The man hadn't been seen in public since their encounter at the Blue Room, and rumors swirled about his sudden health issues. Mark smiled as he started the car. Everything had played out exactly as planned. Emily's life was in ruins, her reputation destroyed, her lover permanently marked by his revenge. The carefully crafted facade she'd built around herself had crumbled, revealing the truth of her character to everyone who knew her. As he pulled out of the driveway for the last time, Mark glanced in his rearview mirror. The house where he'd lived with Emily grew smaller, along with the life he was leaving behind. 8 years of memories, tainted by betrayal. Now reduced to nothing more than a lesson in consequences, his new identity waited in the envelope beside him. New papers, new background, new beginning. The offshore accounts held enough money to start fresh. While Emily would spend years rebuilding from the ashes of her former life, the highway stretched before him, leading to a city where no one knew his name or his story, where he could rebuild without the shadow of betrayal hanging over him. He'd planned every detail, considered every angle, ensured that his revenge was as complete as it was untraceable. Emily had wanted excitement, craved something beyond her safe, predictable marriage. Instead, she learned a crucial truth. The most dangerous predators are the ones that hide in plain sight. Waiting patiently for the perfect moment to strike, Mark merged onto the interstate, leaving behind the ruins of his old life. In his mind, he could see Emily standing in her cheap apartment, staring at divorce papers and a gruesome reminder of the consequences of betrayal. He could imagine her checking her empty bank accounts, her silent phone, her absent friends and family. She had thought him weak, had believed she could walk away unscathed from her betrayal. Now she understood exactly how wrong she had been. The highway signs blurred past as Mark drove toward his new life. Behind him lay the wreckage of his revenge, a devastated wife, a mutilated lover, a marriage destroyed by betrayal. Ahead lay freedom, a fresh start, and the satisfaction of knowing he had made them pay for every moment of humiliation. They had underestimated him, mistaking patience for weakness, calculation for cowardice. That mistake had cost them everything. The sun set behind him as Mark drove away from his old life, his revenge complete, his enemies broken, and his future wide open. Emily and Jacob would spend the rest of their lives dealing with the consequences of their choices, while he disappeared into a new identity, leaving behind nothing but the memory of what happens when you mistake a predator for prey.